Am I in the right spot when you're done?
What?
Am I in the right spot when you're all done in that?
I think so, yeah. We got it muted,
So, yeah,
you can just minimize that, and we're good.
this one I minimize.
Yep.
And then when I'm ready to go, I do that.
Yep. Go ahead and mute us for now, and then You're good?
More room. My space. No, you can share.
You'll just show me how it's going. Right.
Yeah, I give Pete an out, right? Yes, I do, I sure know.
All right,
Love to.
let's do pledge of allegiance. Let Eric get his stuff put down. Let Eric. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. Councilmember Bump, here, Councilmember Happy.
Here.
Councilmember Keller,
Here.
Councilmember Seaver,
Here.
Councilmember Pruitt. Here. Councilmember Plowman. Here. Mayor Wood. Here. Additions or amendments to the agenda? No. No, Jordan?
Nope,
You don't have any? All right, adoption of the consent agenda.
I move to adopt the consent agenda, including the approval of the action minutes for September 3rd, 2025 special meeting, approval of the action minutes for September 8th, 2025. Ratification of bill in the amount of $328,109.94, and approval of OLCC Monroe for Green Brewing.
Second. All right, any discussion? No. All right, all in favor of adopting the consent agenda as stated, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, adoption of the consent agenda passes unanimously. All right, appearances of interested citizens to share on a variety of perspectives of issues facing our community. Go ahead and comment. Okay. Did you read that one that begins with your bride? You want me to say my name and address? Please do. Have you got it? Well, okay, my name is Joanne Wittenberg and I've lived here for 63 years and we live at 55 Riverview Drive. And when I came home, this last Friday and looked at the, Public Works news, I was really kind of shocked about what happened at the last city council meeting. Because, Eric Keller brought up the thing about the Hispanic Latino Heritage Month from September 13th to October 13th. So I asked about doing a little research, and quite frankly, we had Hispanic people living here in Cascade Locks in 1930. And that was well before any of us were probably alive. I'm oldest here, and I know I wasn't alive in 1930. There were two families that lived here in 1930. One was the Juan and Maria Lopez family. And Juan and his parents were Mexican. Maria's mother was Guatemalan and her father was Spanish. And they immigrated to the United States in 1910 and 1912 respectively. And Juan worked as a railroad labor. And then the Martinez family also lived in Cascade Locks in 1930. Felipe and Juana were born in Mexico and they immigrated with their oldest son, also Felipe, in 1922 and 1923 respectively. And they lived in California for a while, but then they moved to Cascade Locks and they had two children, Felix and Maria were born here. And, oh, excuse me, wrong kids. Their son, Santo, and daughter Aurora were born here. And Felipe also worked in the railroad as a laborer. And so I think because of, and that comes from the census of Cascade Locks. So we know that this community has had Latino people here for a long, long time, longer than any of you on city council. And it disturbed me that Eric brought it up to be on the agenda. And you guys said you couldn't discuss it. You couldn't put it on the agenda. And all of you are voted on by us as citizens to represent us. And if we can't ask you to put something on the agenda, how do we get things on the agenda? You need to be open to everybody and inclusive. And at 31%, Pete, you said that were children in our school that were Latino or Hispanic. We have at least 31% families in our community. We need to recognize these people. We need to include them and enjoy their culture. We all love tacos and tortillas and all kinds of Mexican food. We need to embrace them. And we may even have more than 31% families. We may have other families in town that don't have children. We may have 35, 40% Latino families in town, because I don't know if that was a question on the last census, or we know that. But we know there were Latino families here before any of us were here. And I would look, and so I'm asking the council to review that decision that you made 2 weeks ago. And hopefully revote and change your decision. Because we're all human, we're all people, we have different cultures, we have different feelings about things, but we're all human beings. And we want the best for our families, we want the best for our community. And please look at this again, because this community has had Hispanic or Latino people here for a long, long time. The second thing I want to bring up, I'm not sure, am I running out of time?
You got 16 seconds.
Okay, 16 seconds. There's a thing that my daughter is a teacher. I have two daughters that are teachers, and she was talking, we were talking about the world in general, and there's a land acknowledgement. So I wish somebody from city council would look at land acknowledgement. It's a statement that's said before every meeting. The idea started in Australia. I looked it up on the computer today. The idea started in Australia, and then we need to acknowledge that our indigenous people are here. They were here long before us. We are residing on their land, but we need to also be inclusive of that culture.
Thank you, Joanne.
Okay,
Thank you. And then we have,
Yep, we received one written comment from resident Heather Weaver. Dear Cascade Lock City Council, I'm extremely disappointed that the topics of Hispanic Heritage Month and Indigenous Peoples Day were denied a place on the September 8th, 2025 council agenda. The mayor's insinuation that these observances are divisive is troubling. What is truly divisive is refusing to even allow a conversation on matters that affect many of our residents. Both Hispanic Heritage Month and Indigenous Peoples Day are recognized nationally as important opportunities to celebrate history, culture, and contributions that are part of the American story. To dismiss them at the gatekeeping level sends a message that the experiences of Hispanic and Indigenous people in Cascade Locks do not matter enough for council consideration. City council meetings are meant to serve the entire community, not just those whose topics are deemed comfortable. Our town should be a place where hard conversations can be held openly, where inclusion is demonstrated through action, and where residents feel their concerns will be heard, not shut out before they can be discussed. I strongly urge you to place this matter on the agenda at the next council meeting and allow an open discussion and vote. Anything less undermines transparency, accountability, and the public's trust in the city council. Our community is watching. Please demonstrate the Cascade Locks values all of its residents and is willing to lead with respect and courage. By refusing to even discuss these observances, our city risks sending the message that the heritage and voices of many of our residents are not valued. Sincerely, Heather Weaver.
there was one from Cody Stillman that asked for it to be read.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Okay, I
He
missed that.
asked for that to be
Okay,
read.
gotcha.
It
I
came
missed that
today.
comment. I can go print it out.
Please.
Yep.
Just so
1 minute.
everybody's up there. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, there was two, just one of them was supposed to.
Yeah, it was the
The-
1 second.
Second one that he wanted read, the other one he did not say read it.
Yeah, I've got it right here.
Yeah.
The second one. Maybe.
He's got it pointed anyway.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I got it right here.
Can one of us, can any of us read it, or just?
He went to get it.
He went to get it. I don't him read it.
Why is Kathy, do you know why that's up on the? There you go. That's all right. You're a braver woman than I am.
You've learned a lot, yeah.
Yeah, you have.
It's impressive.
Your magic is set up on myself tonight.
Sorry.
Look at the second one says to be again.
Okay, so this is from resident Cody Steelman. Mayor and council, another issue that arose at the September 8th meeting needs to be addressed. This issue is C.M. Keller trying to bully the city into making a recognition month for a race of people. First off, there are laws concerning the agenda. Two links are provided. Thank you for those on the council that did not consent to C.M. Keller's bullying tactic to add this to the agenda. You have my respect, as that would have violated the policy of the state law that prevents depriving the people of their right to be informed citizens. Yet that would not have been the only violation of the law had it not gone any further than that. C.M. Keller should thank those who stood up against him, as the penalty at a minimum would have voided and abolished his recognition month in its entirety. It also could have led to a court action had the city made it an action item and voted on it. Another link is provided. Now, I will not state the city could not discuss this matter as the council can, but there are rules on how far you can discuss matters. And the rules are subject specific for different subject matters. So ensure you fully understand the three types of meetings, what council can and cannot do on matters not on the agenda, and meeting type specific. Because there is a pattern by this council of additional matters being placed on the agenda that result in final decisions, and this is very against the law. So next time, move emergencies to emergency meetings and urgent matters to a special meeting, or wait till the next regular council meeting, because the city may very well find themselves in court and responsible for court, attorney fees, and who knows what a lawsuit as easy as this to win could cost the city. Now I will attach the link to the League of Oregon Cities latest updated recent law changes public meeting manual, study and learn. A link is provided. In closing, I will not address any other laws that are right on the border of violating public meeting laws, as the discussion on this not being an emergency or special meeting topic should have never reached the point of reading the proposed legislation. That discussion should have been just a brief explanation and the reason Keller himself thought it would be in the best interest of the city. Short, sweet, to the point, as the people have the right to be informed about all matters coming before the council, not the opinion of any of the council as to why they support or oppose any matter not on an agenda. Because all citizens have a right to listen to all the discussions on every matter, including the discussion and decisions they did not know about because it was not on an agenda. By keeping discussion limited to utmost and very basic information, the city deprives the people of their right to be fully informed and involved in all matters of the city. By the very violation, the council is prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech of the press, the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. All color of law crimes will, with severe penalties, if you know what criminal and civil color of law deprivation is, not to mention abuse of public office crimes. Now, that's not the first time with this council or city administrator always forgetting or overlooking things where council not only added items to the agenda, but made final decisions by vote that had better end now, or recalls will be the least of their worries. These laws and rules prohibit the liberties, freedoms, and rights of the people. So learn them as well and understand that, because abuse of public office and color of law, along with civil crimes, can cost you everything in your lives personally and not just the city, including your freedom. So now I suggest you read Article 1, Section 1 of the Oregon Constitution, because as the city's history already shows, it doesn't take much for a social compact to rise up against the tyranny in our government here. Just ask C.M. Seeger. This no tax fee or charge issue, as well as raising electrical rates when the city is losing revenue from the electrical funds for other municipal purposes, in direct violation of the law, and knowing the city is violating the law is dangerous to the council. So I ask, just how will the city raise the electrical rates when all the stolen electrical revenue shall be accounted for in return to the electrical fund? After all, the people have no limit to how a social compact punishes despotic tyrants. 2 more links are provided. After all, it was not surplus earnings the city is stealing in violation of the law, so the city cannot claim it is, nor can the city afford to roll back the rates according to the law if they try to declare the stolen revenue as surplus. The city shall adjust a volumetric charge to end users such that charges established for different customer classes bear the same approximate relationship as the gross revenue per kilowatt hour paid by the classes in 1999. So what is the council going to do? That rates from 26 years ago, but the choice doesn't exist anyway, just like it was never a franchise fee or privilege tax for the city. There's more, but that was fine.
How much more?
Page, roughly.
I'd like to make a point of privilege. This is not the first time that Mr. Spielman has threatened members of council, and I would like it understood that that is unacceptable and not allowed.
And that's all the interested citizens, correct?
Yep.
Public hearings,
No public hearings today.
action items, adopt ordinance 467, amend Article 3 of the CBC.
Right. In 2022, the city of Cascade Locks partnered with consultants from the University of Oregon's Institute for Policy Research and Engagement, IPRE, to develop a strategic plan. The 2023 strategic plan outlines 5 key categories for action: downtown revitalization, code improvements, affordable housing, communication enhancement, public service. Many of these goals focus on enhancing the visual and functional aspects of downtown, streamlining city processes to be more business friendly, and updating the development code to reflect current community priorities. In 2024, the city received a technical assistance grant from the Department of Land Conservation and Development to support implementation of short-term strategic plan goals. Specifically, the grant funded the development of a downtown plan and revisions to the Cascade Locks Development Code to promote a more business-friendly environment. The city again contracted with IPRE to lead this effort. The downtown revitalization plan was completed in February 2025. Major goals of the downtown revitalization plan were: 1, assessment and recommendations. Evaluate existing assets and barriers to economic development and provide actionable recommendations, including design code amendments, expanded public parking, recreational trail connections, signage improvements, and funding strategies for key projects. 2, code modernization. Draft updated language for the Cascade Locks Community Development Code to simplify and improve processes for developers, businesses, residents, and staff. 3, community engagement. Ensure open, transparent planning processes with meaningful public involvement. IPRE staff, city staff, and the Downtown Revitalization Project Steering Committee collaborated to draft proposed amendments to Article 3, land use districts of the Development Code. These amendments primarily focus on the following zones: 8-6.70 downtown zone, simplified purpose statement, updated permitted and conditional uses, addition of mobile food units, cottage clusters, and childcare centers as permitted uses. Clarified dimensional standards, building height and parking requirements. New design standards promote a mixed-use pedestrian-oriented corridor that preserves views, reflects regional architecture, and supports a cohesive streetscape. 8-6.72 commercial zone, addition of mobile food units and childcare centers as permitted uses. Replace of design standards with those proposed for the downtown zone. 8-6.76 commercial/residential zone. Addition of childcare centers as permitted, replacement of design standards with those proposed for the downtown zone. 8-6.84 light industrial zone, addition of mobile food units as permitted uses. 8-6.92 public zone, addition of mobile food units as permitted uses. Public hearings and revisions. The Cascade Locks Planning Commission held a public hearing on May 19th, 2025, and unanimously recommended approval of the proposed amendments to City Council. City Council held a public hearing on June 23rd, 2025, and left the public comment period open until July 7th, 2025. Between the June 23rd hearing and the upcoming September 22nd council meeting, staff have incorporated additional revisions. Cottage clusters added to the downtown zone in response to a developer's interest in building on a lot being rezoned from commercial to downtown. Council previously expressed openness to this change. Childcare centers added as permitted uses in downtown commercial and commercial residential zones in alignment with HB 3560, which mandates such allowances statewide by 2027. Staff recommended updating the code proactively. Attached for review are ordinance 467 and chapter 8 of the city charter. A copy of the ordinance was provided to council and posted at City Hall 7 days prior to this meeting, satisfying the requirements to read the ordinance by title only, unless a council member objects. The ordinance may be passed in a single reading if the title is read twice and the vote is unanimous. Does council object to reading the ordinance by title only?
Anybody object to title only? No.
Okay, I will now read it twice in title only. Ordinance number 467, an ordinance amending the Community Development Code, Article 3 of Land Use Districts. Ordinance number 467, an ordinance amending the Community Development Code, Article 3 of Land Use Districts. Several of you asked questions over the weekend and this morning. I forwarded them to Amanda Ferguson, who led the effort in developing these codes. She responded. I sent them via email and printed out copies as well. And Amanda is here tonight to answer any questions.
I move to adopt ordinance 467, amending Article 3 of the Cascade Locks Community Development Code.
I'll second.
All right. Discussion. Something?
I asked the question of the 10 pages, and I understand that we may not have been changing the new 10, what's in the old 10 pages. For my personal, I don't know about anybody else, but I'd like to know that there are 10 pages missing and that there will be 10 more pages when we actually get it, because when you look at the old one that we had to carry on, it says page 1 of 34 with no statement that there are 10 pages that will be added later that we're not changing. I didn't see it in maybe I missed it. This was an awful lot of reading, but in future, when we do that, I'd like all of it when we're having the hearing, so that it doesn't look like we're adding 10 pages when we're actually adopting the measure, the ordinance. Also, I don't understand the change of adding I read your thing, I understand what you just read, why we're adding cottage village when down. Cottage cluster, excuse me, one where you already have the downtown zoned as MDR, medium density residential. No, medium density, what is it? MD. Sorry, there was a lot on the because, oh, it's right here, it's on the back here. Residential use along Wanapah clarified to match medium density residential standards. As such, single family homes are no longer included as either permitted or conditionally permitted uses. So I don't understand why we're isolating cottage clusters. Thank you. If we're gonna do that, then to me, it feels like we need to put on what else, like duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, apartments. Why are we giving such significance to the cottage clusters and including it when it's already included under the MDR?
Did you want that, or Amanda?
Well, and maybe I interpreted this wrongly as well as Amanda, when we originally started discussing this back in June, the developer from across the street wanted to put cottage clusters in, those were not permitted in it. And we wanted to present the option to council as to whether you wanted it or not.
Okay, but help me understand this, and I think in Article 5, it said, doesn't it say that it's in downtown is an MDR?
Yes.
So, I mean, why do we need to add an extra thing if that qualifies as an MDR?
Did we have verbiage that said that it needed to have a business on the first floor in the downtown district before we build residential? I thought I remembered that being the issue.
Amanda would know.
Ben, are you there?
She's been through the whole process. She's muted, but I would say so.
I am here. Sorry, I was opening up the MDR section because I wanted to be able to respond directly. When we say that, yes, the commercial zone and the downtown zone are designed to replicate the MDR for the type of residential that is allowed. This cottage cluster is actually a little different. In the MDR section, cottage cluster is a conditional use. The way that we have added in the downtown zone, it would be a permitted use. So that is the primary difference in that case. So it would be calling out cottage clusters as a permitted use rather than just as a conditional use.
Do you have another question?
Well, but according to, okay, later on, we're gonna be voting on Article 5, and it says that, maximum cottage density is allowed in MDR, so I mean, Matt, I don't understand why we need an extra layer, so you're saying that cottage, what is it?
Cottage clusters.
Is a different than maximum cottage density? I don't.
It's different than multiple density residential. MDR is a zoning type that is medium density residential. Within that, it has a certain expectation for a minimum and maximum density. So we always expect that when we're talking about the downtown and the commercial zones being similar to the MDR, we're talking about in its minimum and maximum residential density and the type of housing that is allowed. By adding the cottage clusters into the permitted list for the downtown zone, we were attempting to make it very clear for potential users that cottage clusters, which is a specific type of medium density residential development, are permitted in that zone. The other types of medium density residential development are mixed use apartments above or below or behind commercial uses, or multifamily dwellings. But a cottage cluster is not technically a multifamily dwelling, because a multifamily dwelling is one building, whereas a cottage cluster can be multiple dwellings on one property. So it's slightly different. It's just being clear.
Did you have a question, Courtney?
I was just adding.
Okay. Bernard.
Thank you, Mayor. So Amanda, regarding the college cluster addition or change, I communicated many times that I'm interested in housing and increasing our housing stock in Cascade Locks. However, I also kind of consider downtown a special and unique place where you want commercial activity and then ideally, with the mix of residential. That's not uncommon in high quality downtowns. And I'd like us to replicate that kind of model. I guess the first thing I want to ask you, have you seen cottage cluster development in other small town downtowns as a permitted use? And how does that fit, if you will? And then if you haven't seen a lot of that, are we partially compromising kind of this grander vision for downtown where, again, it's a mix of commercial, retail, residential, and all these different uses using this awesome infrastructure that exists on Wanapa, so folks can get in and out and they can connect with the services in a very, walkable, pedestrian-friendly manner. You see what I'm asking? Are we losing a little of that if we allow cottage clusters as a permitted use. I had two questions there.
Yeah, the first one is that I'm going to say I haven't seen a lot of small towns put cottage clusters in their downtown zone. I've seen a number of them included in their code, but I haven't seen a whole lot of people take advantage of doing that within a downtown zone itself. I have seen some really very attractive cottage clusters, on the other hand, that would probably be fairly appropriate in a downtown zone that does allow mixed use and like townhouses and things like that. There are several actually in the Eugene area that would be incredibly beautiful. That doesn't mean that all of them would be, of course. So whether or not you're going to impact the zoning area, I think that's a good question, Bernard. And I mean, it honestly wasn't part of the downtown zone immediately at the very beginning because we didn't really necessarily think it would be easy to make it fit in. I think it would take some work. The option here might be that because there is some concern that if you just put in a cottage cluster of 400 square foot rectangles into downtown, it wouldn't be appropriate. If we maintained it as a conditional use, rather than putting it as a permitted use, it would bring it into design review standards, or at least provide the community an opportunity to respond to the proposed design in a way that a permitted use would not, which might actually help alleviate some of that concern. Alternately, it could be removed again entirely, but this was intended to address a specific request from a neighbor. And I think that neighbor has the intent that they what they want to do would fit in the area that they're looking at. But I absolutely understand that the community as a whole may be concerned about that, and they may prefer that become a conditional use.
So, go ahead. So if I'm understanding you right, if we adopt this as presented, it will be a permitted and you can't, after the fact, require a conditional use process if we adopt it as we're reading it right now. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So if we want the conditional, well, then we should change that to pull it out as a permitted use and then send them back to the process of a conditional use permit if that's gonna have concern.
Correct. Yes. So it would be moving it from where it currently is, which is 8-670.020 S, to moving it to 030 and then making it J, I would expect.
Is that what council's wanting to do? Conditional use?
That's what I'm wanting to do.
Tiffany?
I agree. I think it's a good
Courtney?
idea.
Let's see amendments on that.
Okay,
I did have a question.
Yeah,
okay, before we do that, okay, so you remember that?
Yeah, after we've got all of our discussion, we may have some other changes we wanna make to the motion.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
Zoning district, classification, zoning classification districts. The downtown zone is in residential zoning district.
You didn't say what page you're on.
I'm just on page 1, article 3, it's page 4, but it's the zoning
first code.
classification districts. The city is divided into the following comprehensive plan designations and zoning classification districts, so we have residential,
Yeah.
commercial, and
Yeah.
public.
It's a really interesting question. That is actually how your current code is written. I didn't change it. I would think that it probably should be moved into the commercial districts, but I don't know if Jordan might know why this is there. I can tell you that the part of the point of when you're splitting your zoning districts into these subclassifications, it's to meet the intent of your buildable lands analysis, which says under state law that you have to have 20-year land supply under 3 different categories: residential, commercial, and industrial. Public is kind of the extra where you're not required under state law to have a certain amount of public. It's really just intended to be the catch-all for the public spaces that are used for infrastructure and various other things. But I'm not honestly certain why downtown was historically included in the residential subset. It doesn't change necessarily at all how it's implemented. So it could easily be moved into commercial. It would be what I would consider a Scrivener's error, because unless somebody knows why it's there to begin with, it could just be considered an error.
That just was something that stood out to me when I was reading through it. It just didn't seem like it was. You know, I think residential, I think like my neighborhood. I don't think about businesses and things you would expect to find in the downtown zone. So I would advocate for clarity's sake that downtown should be moved to the commercial zoning district unless there's a reason why we have it out there.
Do you have any input on that, Kathy, as far as that
I
goes?
was talking with Jordan at the time, so what was it that you read?
My question was, is why is the downtown zoning in the residential zoning district?
See, yeah, downtown's here. I don't know.
Or did you have your hand up?
Well, now, with Patty had
Yeah.
history of our community and the planning process we've gone through, so I thought maybe she had an idea. But what the planner just said makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense.
Well, it
To meet
does.
those state kind of, cause our downtown's kind of been empty. You could see them going, okay, we need some land to do, boost our residential need or acknowledge our residential needs. Here's all this empty land, throw that in there. I could see that happening in a previous planning process.
So as a way to kind of fudge the numbers to meet the requirement, but not necessarily meet the intent.
Broader intentions, I would argue, yes, that's right, yeah.
Okay.
Agreed with Bernard. The DLCD has in the past pushed back when I have seen communities trying to use their mixed-use residential and downtown commercial areas as part of their residential housing need. They can sometimes be pushed back on that, although they're getting better at it. I've seen some communities actually list it both as residential and commercial, so it can be used for both of their inventory needs.
Is anybody opposed to moving that from residential to from downtown, moving it to commercial?
No, I'm not. Keller, are you okay with?
No, fine. So I'm keeping track of these.
I'm gonna try to make a note.
You better start making a note.
Downtown. Okay. Next question, Courtney, sorry.
I've got a couple. Excuse me. I know that I emailed about this passage through a parking lot. But looking at the illustration for 070.05 I'm wondering how that works without having to pass through a parking lot. What page? Page 20 is the drawing. Because I understand, like, so to pass through a parking lot, having all of these entrances.
Right.
On frontage
It just has
road,
to have, you just have to have one entrance that doesn't require that you go through a parking lot, which for the illustrations that are on 20 would assume that there was also an entrance for all of them on one of the two streets, either on the frontage of the street.
I don't know if the verbiage really conveyed that.
So similarly to how
Yeah.
Thunder Island was built, there's an entrance on the street as well as an entrance in the back that goes through the parking lot.
Okay. And then on page 23, I was curious about 3A. How it calls out buildings specifically, and being as it's mixed use, does it need to be all buildings? Or just businesses?
It's calling out all buildings. The architectural standards apply to the design of all buildings within that section. So whether or not they're mixed use or all business, they would still be required to have some kind of protection over their entrances that would provide protection from the rain, wind, and sun. So some kind of small awning. It doesn't have to be a full facade width awning, but it would have to be a small awning over the entrance, no matter what the use of the building would be.
And so when we have an area that, is home occupation. It would also have to have an awning.
Home occupations are different because home occupations are typically their current residential buildings. So they're single use, typically single family homes or duplexes, something like that, that is being utilized in part for a home occupation. One of the conditions of a home occupation typically is that you don't actually make any changes to the exterior of it to make it look like a commercial building. You're just converting part of your interior to be for use for residential, or for commercial, excuse me. So you wouldn't have to make any modifications to a home occupation to meet these standards.
But if you were to update the facade of your home, wouldn't that fall under?
Only if you
under-
were trying to convert it and change its use. A home occupation doesn't change the use of a single family home. It's an accessory use to a single family home. So it doesn't require that you change the exterior to become commercial. So yeah, it's home occupations are kind of stand out on their own. They're not intended to require the modification of a building to meet commercial standards.
And so which section clarifies that?
You'd have to go into home occupation, which is in section 1, turns out. I had to search for it earlier today. So under the definitions of home occupation is actually different. Jordan, do you actually have, or is there anywhere else in your code that references home occupations specifically beyond the
No.
definitions in 1?
Not that I recall.
So council, typically when communities allow home occupations, they're somewhere in their code, be it in their special use standards, in their conditional use standards, in their zoning section that is talking about just general uses. They will define what classifies a home occupation and then put some parameters around a home occupation. And because typically a home occupation is a use that doesn't change the essential character of a residential building. It is somebody who's operating a office out of their building or potentially selling online materials or building something that they're sewing at home and then selling online, things like that. It's not intended for businesses that are going to have high traffic volume. So typically communities will stipulate that for a home occupation, you can't have something that's going to require a lot of customer traffic, that it can't require a huge amount of parking, more than 1 or 2 extra cars, that it can't, that it also potentially has to meet certain operating hours. It's not unusual at all that home occupations are limited to daytime operating hours for many communities. And then if you violate that, or if you exceed those standards and those kind of limitations that are placed by the code, you become what's typically called a cottage industry. So the house is still the primary use, but you're running a larger business from that. I've seen bakeries that become cottage industries. Auto repair, auto detailing often becomes a cottage industry. I lived next door to a nursery that was a cottage industry. It was a single family home that grew plants for sale. And the other people on the other side of me were also a cottage industry, which they were doing saw blade repair. But Cascade Locks' code does not go into detail as to what a cottage industry is. It just allows them, it defines them, but then doesn't give any kind of additional parameters.
So would calling it a business instead of a building take care of any sort of confusion that verbiage might cause?
Well, it would still, but that the code is still applicable to new multifamily buildings that are going in. So if you're building a new apartment building, you'd still have to meet these codes. So it's not just a business. And you could specify that single family homes, so long as a single family home retains, is still the primary use of that structure doesn't apply. But single family homes are no longer allowed in the downtown zone as outright uses anyway, so they're non-conforming uses to begin with. So it's kind of like, you don't typically, but I mean, putting standards in here for a non-conforming use doesn't necessarily, isn't going to necessarily help a lot of things.
If they currently exist there, they will continue to exist there, and if they decide that they want to update the front of their building, their home. Then they'll have to,
They would apply for a permit as a non-conforming development, and then they would just have to meet with the standards for non-conforming development. They wouldn't have to necessarily meet these standards. Unless they were converting the home to a commercial use. And then at that point, they'd have to meet all the standards that would be triggered by both the zoning code and the building code. And there are a lot in the building code that are triggered if you convert a residential building into a commercial use.
are we worried that having all these stipulations on somebody updating their facade in our downtown area will scare people off? From the large cost of updating their home? They could update it and give it a paint and a facelift, but now they'll have to adhere to all of these other rules, and now they might be.
How many
Fair enough.
single family homes are in the downtown area? Might be the question you also want to look at. That I know of, there are 4.
Yeah.
And that is those, so it's only, we're talking about 4 buildings that are non-conforming uses presently
heard-
and will remain that way. So, I mean, certainly we could put into the code an exemption for existing single family homes.
I would like to do that, because I don't feel like. I don't feel like this, yeah, go ahead.
Barney, could you just summarize? I got a little confused with that discussion, so I'd like to understand kind of what your concern is. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Just to kind of bring me up to speed with.
So on page 23,
Mhm.
talks about weather protection. And it talks about buildings must incorporate features such as porches, alcoves, etc. But my concern is that we have single family homes in our downtown zone. Now, if they go to update it, or like I said, give it a facelift, they'll have to now follow the.
That's not.
If it's a home occupation though. No,
Even if it's home, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
and so where does it say that? That was my question. Where does it say they don't have to?
Ask,
Go ahead.
I think Amanda can answer that.
You got that?
But let me just have Amanda ask another question. If the homeowner, one of those 4, decide to paint their building, does that then
Mhm.
trigger them putting in an awning?
And she says no.
No,
Okay, so you think it is,
Where does it say that?
but if you want to make this really clear so that there's no questions and nobody's concerned, what the section that I would change is actually on page 21. And it would be under applicability for the downtown zone design standards. I would potentially add a statement to the end of B2, which is about existing buildings in the downtown zone shall be altered by, etc., to that in a manner consistent with these design standards, and add at the bottom of that says existing single family residential non-conforming uses are not these standards do not apply to existing single family residential uses, something along those lines.
How does everybody feel about adding that in there?
I like clarity, so yeah, I appreciate that. That's good.
Eric.
So my question with that is, if that homeowner sells the home, doesn't the non-conforming status end? Isn't that terminated?
The non-conforming status does not end until the use ends. So if the homeowner sells a property and then it sits vacant for over a year, then that use would no longer be a residential. It could not be used for residential anymore. But if the homeowner sells it to somebody who moves in within a year and still maintains it as a single family residential, then it can stay as a single family residential.
Thanks.
And I've got more questions. Where does it say that if it sits vacant for more than a year, it changes its status? I missed that.
That's in the non-conforming use standard.
Okay,
And I'd have to look at which code that is. It's not actually in this section of the code.
okay. And so my next question, is actually that same page 21. And I did, email this question. So a lot of the applicability, sections are all a little bit different. For example, the one on page 21, B2 specifically calls out existing, buildings. And one calls out major development. There's other places, that don't. Well, there's other places that say that unless you're already, that you only have to get up to code if you're remodeling. Whereas I feel like, this one doesn't spell that out. It says existing buildings shall be altered, in a manner consistent with these designs. It doesn't actually say the next, it doesn't say the next time that there's a facelift on this building, it must conform, whereas there are other sections that specifically say, 72.
How does I'm not certain how that statement, which says existing buildings shall be altered by exterior alterations in a manner consistent with these design standards, how that doesn't say you have to conform to these standards.
It does, it says you
Okay.
shall, then as in you shall now, as
Yeah.
opposed to shall the next time you do any sort of updates.
It says shall be altered. Okay. I think it may just be word choice. How can we make it more clear for you that that's what we intended?
By adding something official sounding, well, I'm not very good at, to the extent of, when there's a plan to update the building.
I can modify the sentence to say, if an existing building within the downtown zone is altered by an exterior alteration, addition, or painting or other means, that alteration shall be in a manner consistent with these design standards. How's that?
Can we do that on page 28 as well? And
Sure.
then, the other,
Yes.
other applicability ones, page 33.
28, 33. Yes, absolutely. Does that help?
Yes,
Okay.
shall is very, cut and dry, it feels like to me. And then my next question's on page 24, 4B. Reflective glass and painted or darkly tinted glass shall not be used. Does that go against some sort of, I thought like places that served liquor had to have darkened windows. Am I wrong in
No,
that?
they do not. Not under
Okay.
OLCC. They may have it in the 70s, honestly. It may have been an old code that is no longer required.
Okay, and then I think this might be my last one. Page 28. It says it a few times, it talks to, sorry, A. Or before A, that initial paragraph. For all property within the C zone in the area between city limits on the west and the intersection of Edgewood Street and Wanapa on the east. So the current sign, as well as Google Maps calls it Edgewood Avenue. And the county map calls it Edgewood Street. So I'm wondering which is the most official way to refer to it? Do we call it by the sign that's currently there? Or do we call it by what the county has on its website?
Jordan, I'm going to defer to you on that.
I'm gonna defer to. I'm defer to Director Woosley on this one.
I will tell you, years ago, we went through ordinances, resolutions, everything to find out which ones were named streets, which ones were named avenue, that sort of thing. And we have street signs made. And whatever the county's map is not our official names.
Nomenclature.
They can
errors have been made. In a lot of things on that map, I will say it's Avenue.
And the sign says Avenue. Do we want to update this to reflect what the sign says? So if somebody looks at this, they can go to that spot and say, this is that line.
Yeah, should say the same.
And then that's in 2 spots. I don't know if I actually marked the second spot.
I can search for it.
Okay.
That's not a problem.
Well, thank
All
you.
right, any other questions? Tiffany?
So, I asked that question about, on page 21 about the, it says no off-street parking now. In the document that we were present, I know you say that's not a change, but was that just a transpose? I mean, because in the document that we looked at on the 23rd, on page, page 11 of that document, and on page 21, current document, for point B under the 8607110 off-street parking and loading, it now says no, it didn't say it then. So what, you're saying that the no is the correct one?
Yeah, that was actually a mistake in the draft that you received. The no is actually, that's not a change to the current code. The current code doesn't require off-street parking. And we had intended to leave it as not required for residential units located in mixed-use buildings only. So that caveat is only specifically for residential units in mixed-use buildings.
And then I have a couple more questions. On the, we've changed the minimum off-street parking requirement from one parking space per 500 square feet, which is what I'm assuming that Thunder Island Brewing built theirs under, unless they did they get a?
Their parking requirements were based on whatever the old code was.
Okay, and now we're making it one parking space per 1,000 square feet. And my argument's gonna be that Thunder Island doesn't have enough parking as it is, and now we're gonna cut that in half with any new building that's coming in. And I understand we have a fine line of space and parking and all of that, but I don't wanna see more get pushed out onto the street. As we had, terrible times during PCT days. And we can't argue that that won't happen because we don't know what's gonna be built into the downtown, so we don't know what the future's gonna have as far as parking on street and off street. So
This recommendation was very carefully thought out, intended to meet the needs of a couple of the vacant properties that are on Wanapa that we, in order to make them even buildable. Several of the vacant properties, did a layout of trying to figure out with the existing code and the existing parking standard for a building on some of the existing vacant lots. And unless you're basically doing a coffee cart, you couldn't fit a building in there with the current parking standard on several of those lots. They basically were not buildable with the current parking standard.
Well, I had a potential suggestion. Maybe we could add, because I don't like the change in parking space requirements either at all. I would be more open to it if we had another system in place, another plan, another idea, another something. And so if it's possible, could we table that idea and say until we have a plan B for parking in place, then we'll keep the current.
The intent is to implement this in conjunction with other work that the city is going to do in order to address parking requirements and parking needs, including developing a public parking agreement with one of the existing parking lots on Wanapa so that some of that overflow can immediately be used. We can use parking lots that are already existing. And Jordan has already, and we're going to be that portion of those recommendations, the incentives and the additional access to public parking that it doesn't require a private property owner to build and pay for parking is something that we absolutely are recommending as part of the downtown plan. That being said, if you don't, I mean, I would recommend doing the code update now. You have several potential developers that are going to come in that would definitely prefer that you made this code update now rather than table it for later. That being said, if you choose to table it for now, you can.
Any other questions?
And then the church, can you define the religious assembly? I'm concerned about future interpretation of what assembly religious is instead of it being specifically. We could say church, mosque, or synagogue, or whatever, we could put all of the verbiage in there. Can you explain that, please?
Well, it's pretty standard to just call them religious assembly rather than defining it as church, since a church is specifically a Christian building and it's specifically a building that by definition, a religious assembly is just more broad. It offers a much larger understanding of what a religious assembly might be than just a Christian building.
And it doesn't affect homes, if people decide to have church in their homes.
If you have church in your homes, if it's just a church meeting, like a men's meeting or a Bible study, that would not trigger a conditional use permit. It wouldn't be considered a church. But if, say, you're the Christian, I don't know, the Church of Christ decided to move into somebody's house and operate it as their primary location, that would be a church and they would have to get a conditional use permit. So when it depends, if somebody's, it depends on what the scale of the occupation of that church in somebody's house is. The thing with churches is they are assemblies under the building code. So if somebody changes their house into a church, then they do technically have to do a change of use with the building department that would address assembly requirements under the building code, which is different fire standards, different occupancy different exiting standards. There's all sorts of different things that go on with that. So you don't want to just necessarily waive the concept of if somebody really converts their entire church house into a church, then yeah, there are permits that are required.
Thank you.
Bernard. Were you done, Tiffany?
I don't feel like we resolved the parking issue. I don't want to get away from that until we resolve.
So, do you have anything on parking?
Yeah, but I saw Bernard's hand up first, so.
Okay, go ahead.
So regarding the parking, so when, for example, Thunder Island built their business, what was the parking requirement?
One for every 100 square feet.
Yeah, that's what is in the code.
That's the old code.
And they're also,
Sorry.
yeah, the whole thing for this, and then also they have shared parking. Brigham, Fish, and those 3 lots, there's actually 3, there are still 3 lots. Their parking is also considered shared parking, they have a shared parking agreement between them.
Okay,
So Thunder customers can park at Brigham's lot?
It's
Not necessarily, well,
They just
they have a
typically
shared parking agreement, that's all I'm gonna say.
think that's all, yeah.
Yeah.
I know that Thunder customers. Oh, I'm sorry, Brigham customers can park in Thunder, I didn't know the opposite. No.
Yeah, I mean, Brigham Fish had to have a certain number of spots as well. But those properties have a shared parking agreement.
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, well, I just, look, the third thing I ran on was downtown redevelopment and economic development in Cascade Locks, and as someone who's been here 17 years and seen our town just really just slowly, bring in new development. Improving the business friendly aspect of parking requirements, I think would go, take a proper step in getting our downtown more vibrant and more more retail and, you know, the quality of life that I'd like to see in Cascade Locks, so. As much as I empathize with the overflow challenges as a result, especially at big events. My bias is make it business friendly, so folks will invest and, you know. Feel in our downtown, which to me feels very empty, and I just would like to see more commercial and retail activity. And it's a challenge when you have that requirement.
Courtney? I'd like to point out the differences between the current code and this new code. Is that the current code says 500 square feet of floor area, whereas the new code actually says that. Accessory unoccupied areas such as stairs, elevators, storage rooms, HVAC shafts, and mechanical rooms don't count towards that square footage. And so, and really, now you get an even larger building for less parking when we compare it to the existing code.
Again, that was done very intentionally. That was what the committee that was reviewing these definitely recommended. And it was to address existing business problems as well as potentially new businesses coming in.
Mary Ann. And I understand that we need those new businesses, but bringing businesses in that don't have parking, people aren't gonna come here. They gotta have a place to park, and right now, our parking is terrible. So now you're adding to it. So I don't understand that theory, Bernard. I'm sorry.
Pete,
All right, so this is a contentious issue, obviously, and this is something that I remember when this came up the first time, and one of the things that Amanda said that really stuck with me was our goal is to make Cascade Locks a place that's a great place for people to live. And if we make it a great place for people to live, it's being a place that people want to come and visit. And the people that live in this town, the number one thing they're asking for is they want to see downtown cleaned up. They want to see businesses downtown. They want to have a place, you know, where you can go grocery shopping and a bank, and they want that in downtown. And what Amanda pointed out was that due to the lot sizes we have under our current building code and the parking requirement, those lots are undevelopable. You just can't develop them. So it's a tough situation, and I get that. And I remember this conversation, and one of the things that the second thing she said that really stuck with me was this creative solution to the parking challenge. And the example she gave was in Eugene, that when a business is vacant, that if that business is, you know, that space isn't occupied within 30 days, it becomes a city parking lot. And I think that led to the discussion of all of these vacant parking lots that are not being fully, you know, not utilized at all. And making those available for community parking is an option. I think that we're in a tough spot. If we leave the building codes the way it is, as far as one parking spot for every 500 square feet of space, we can't, but the developers aren't gonna move in, we're not gonna do anything with it. On the flip side, we change it to 1 for 1,000, we take out the elevators and the stairwells. And the risk is that, and the concern I hear you saying is that we're gonna end up with people who don't have enough place to park. There's not enough parking spaces at Thunder already, and they were built under 1 for every 500, so the concern is this is gonna push people into the neighborhood, right? I get that, but these lots are not as big as Thunder Island either. And I think we just have to, you know, if we wanna, we can't have both. And we need to make this business friendly and so that people will invest and develop those properties. And I feel like it's the city's responsibility to try to provide an alternative for parking, and we have parking lots that can be utilized for that function.
Bernard.
So I'm kind of curious if, how council feels about if we adopted this code, it's just been presented, but we then commit to, creating, you know, adopting a downtown parking ordinance or resolution or whatever format it takes to, so we can, address the pressure valves that will be created should developers come in and start building. I think I would love to do this. I don't know if you maybe Kathy's done or maybe Amanda, I would love to walk downtown and count every parking spot that's viable. We have
We've
done.
done that. It's like
How many are?
172 along one of our.
Or
That's-
someone-
That's 172 that are on street. That is
Oh.
just parallel parking on
Okay.
Wanapa,
I'm talking about-
172.
What's the Cascade in? What's,
Oh,
you know,
sure.
what?
I
okay,
didn't,
what's-
I didn't
how many
identify the number of parking spaces on the private lots.
If you look at every, I wanna believe there is a way we can work with the existing infrastructure and still get these lots developed. And we can find out, I feel like if we put our minds to it, we can figure out something and have both issues addressed. I'd like to think that.
Courtney, and that's what I suggested, just a little bit differently, that we get a parking plan in place and then we can implement this. A couple of points that I wanted to bring up. If we start looking at vacant lots parking, which is a great alternative, I'm super for it, but now we've got to look at the cost of who's gonna pay to stripe it, who's gonna pay to make sure that the parking lot's up to code, so that if anybody twists an ankle in a pothole, that it's not the city's responsibility. There's a whole slew of issues that come up with that. And then Amanda, you said that there was a committee that looked at the needs, and they strongly recommend changing this parking lot to square foot ratio. Did they do a traffic impact study?
Did we do a full traffic impact study? No, we did not.
And then moving forward, these businesses that come in to build, that we're trying to entice to build here, are they gonna have to do a traffic impact study?
It depends if they trigger, there's a traffic impact study requirement in your code. It's in chapter 4, which we're not actually changing at all. It is based on the transportation planning rule, and it has a threshold that's based on the TPR. I think it's 300 trips per day. Don't quote me on that because I haven't read it recently. And if a business is going to be large enough that it would trigger that, then it would need to be a traffic impact study, but otherwise, no. So say if you take the small lot that is next to the coffee shop across from Thunder Island, that lot is unlikely to ever have a building in it that's large enough that it would require a traffic impact study. Unless they did a 3-story auditorium, I guess. I mean, there are a couple of things that might trigger a traffic study because they might get to enough ADT, which is, but that is triggered separately from the code. So I don't know. I can look that up if you would like me to.
You know, a lot of the spots that we have, I mean, how many areas do we have that we have enough space to build a 1,000 square foot building?
1,000 square foot building you could fit on that property. What you can't fit on is like a 40,000 square foot building. 1,000 square feet is not very large for a commercial building. It's very
Right.
small. That's about the smallest commercial building you'll ever see built in, unless you're literally talking about a coffee shack.
And so basically all of our properties,
Okay, Tiffany, and I do wanna move on along too, because we have another one to go through, so let's try to, okay, narrow this parking out.
So we're talking about utilizing parking spaces that aren't being used now, but what happens in the future when those businesses do open and they're no longer available? I mean, then what do we do?
Well, part of it is to really pull downtown this way. Our downtown is on one half of Wanapa. Updating these, so these tiny lots across from City Hall can be updated is part of it. Pull the people all the way down Wanapa, make them park in one end and walk. I mean, you walk everywhere in Newport, you walk everywhere in Lincoln City. I mean, the point is this pedestrian friendly downtown to get them to walk by and stop in every business in Cascade Homes.
Yeah, but that doesn't answer the question. What happens when those parking spaces are no longer available and we built this? We built this.
I was thinking the same thing. We got we got a parking agreement with the Columbia Inn and,
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden that business reopens and they don't wanna lease. it.
yeah. So then what happens? That's my
Parking meters.
When we get back to Bernard's recommendation that a parking plan be created, the downtown refinement plan has a schedule for recommendations for parking. Do this first, second, third, and sort of an order of operations for parking. And certainly a parking plan that actually identifies specific properties you're going to look at for interim use and then long-term use is one of the things that needs to happen in that to make that plan work. So I would agree with Bernard that a focused effort to develop, to take the recommendations from the downtown refinement plan and create a parking plan is what's necessary to deal with long-term parking requirements.
If I could just say one small thing,
Mhm.
I don't think it will be a hard sell for a developer who wants to put in a small business. Doesn't wanna, again, finds this lot undevelopable with the parking requirement as stands. And then you tell them, so look, we're basically, we're granting you, a business-friendly, development code here. In exchange, you have to put up some funds to support a broader comprehensive downtown parking plan for the city that you will benefit from. I don't think that would be a hard sell. You make a small contribution instead of building a massive parking lot for one little business. Make it, and then we'll solve this as a group versus each business trying to figure out its own parking solution. It's not efficient and it's not business friendly. And if you look at downtown, they all end up doing something like that.
Does that have to go in here though?
No, it does go on. To me, that's a separate thing that council takes on. Again, that's what I would ask you guys. If we can adopt this, but we all collectively commit to putting together a comprehensive parking plan for our downtown.
So why, can I get through the question, why can't we leave it as it is and then we come up with a parking plan?
Because we're killing potential development. We're preventing folks from coming in at 500 per parking spot. And I don't wanna continue that. I wanna open up downtown for development.
Yeah.
That's my response.
Go ahead.
And is that kind of like what Hood River did? Like, 'cause I think they had that option where people could, if you couldn't provide enough parking, you could kind of buy your way out of it.
Right,
And the
I
idea
know
was
that's
that-
common in communities, I mean.
And yeah, LIDs are typical as well, local improvement districts that are designed that basically use funds from businesses that are not have being required to build it on site to instead pay for the purchase of a lot that becomes public parking.
Right, and as Councilmember Bump said, where is the, how do we, you're putting this and then you don't get this. But we all know that there's a hotel being built in downtown Hood River that doesn't have a parking spot, but they're managing through that. That developer would not be doing that if he didn't know that his parking needs couldn't be met. But they're managed as a downtown, not as an individual business.
Yeah.
So I think this problem is very solvable, but again, we need a plan,
I think that's a good example, but I don't know that there would have been, and if I understand correctly, I believe that one of the reasons why that building has been vacant since, I think, the 70s. I mean, it's been a long time since anything's been in there, was because of the parking requirement.
Right.
And what this developer opted to do is partner with the railroad and provide, they're only doing, what's the word for valet parking, like it just fell in my head. You have to have, valet parking only is the only option, and that was their way around that, because they had this parking agreement, because the buyout. If they exercise that, was gonna be cost prohibitive for any developer, to move the other way. But I don't think that would happen if there wasn't a requirement for the parking, I guess.
Yeah.
Sure.
Honestly, the
Okay.
bigger cities are eliminating all parking requirements. So many communities have actually taken their entire downtown zone as does not require any parking at all. And that's not what I'm recommending, but that is where many communities are moving.
I was gonna say, Amanda, I think that, when you say those things, I can feel the cringing in the room, because I don't
Yeah,
think anybody's.
I'm not recommending it. I didn't recommend it. But if you're looking at trends across the Oregon, that is where everybody's moving.
I understand the parking. And I totally get that we wanna be business friendly and all that, but I also understand the citizens that live in Cascade Locks that happen to live in off that outshoots of the downtown area. You're one of them, Bernard, you see how we've had this red stripe one side of the street. You know, so I don't want them people to feel it either, just because we need to work on a parking plan, you know what I'm saying? So that we get it done, say that we're gonna do it and do it, but if there's not some reason for these businesses to want to pay into this, to get out of the criteria, then I don't feel like they'll wanna pay into parking either, and I don't really feel like the city should be paying for all the parking for the businesses either. Go ahead, Courtney, and then we're gonna,
Are we unable to create a, trigger, what's that called? Cause I mean, as Amanda said, we already have people working on a parking plan. We've got some very inspired council members to find a solution to this. So once we create a solution, then that can trigger the addition or the change of this particular section. Is there a reason we can't do that?
No, but I mean, there are there are lots of options before you. You can not change the section. I would recommend making a change to the section at minimum to go to from gross to net. You could leave it at 500 square feet with net floor area, unless the property owner is willing to, I don't know, put some word in as far as contribute to a local improvement district, and then come up with that later as part of your parking plan.
And so, I mean, what's the difference between? And why not set this in place? What's your hesitancy to recommend that?
We haven't defined what that local improvement district would look like at this point.
Yeah.
So there would be some work with an attorney, almost certainly, to actually craft some language associated with that.
okay, we're getting, is there anything else besides parking that everybody has on the ordinance? Or
Parking
we
is
got
always what everybody wants to talk about.
parking, and what?
So we mentioned tonight.
Well, I got the other few things, but parking, and then is there anything beyond that? Okay.
So I wanted to say that I totally understand, and that one of the biggest concerns for the community is that surplus parking that's being pushed out into the residential areas. And one of the recommendations of the downtown zone is actually to specifically address that as well. So yes, that would be part of a parking plan that would need to be developed. So where would you like to go, council?
That's the question.
Are we,
I'm gonna vote on this and.
it's not a.
Changes need to be made.
Yeah, just
Maybe
at this
it's all
point,
gonna be
these are
done.
substantial changes, when you come back for a second read.
Yeah,
Oh, that was gonna be my.
Okay, yeah.
So I'll pull my motion and we can keep moving then?
yeah, so we can move on, so we got parking,
I do need some direction though, what am I
parking,
doing?
what are we doing, are we saying keeping it the same and doing a parking plan, or what are we doing? Are we
Or
going-
changing it and doing a parking plan?
I think that the suggestion of 1,000 feet, not with all the exceptions, was.
So move the stairwell and the elevators to the net. square
Yes,
footage.
yes,
So keep it at 500, but change the,
No.
because it's currently at 500.
it's currently at 500, the new one's 1,000, not including HVAC and stairwells and balconies and all of that sort of stuff, so take that verbiage out.
And then leave it at
Leave it at
1,000,
1,000, but make it the whole, the net footage of the building instead of.
what do you think of that, Amanda?
So your idea would be going one space per 1,000 gross floor area?
Yes.
Yes,
Isn't gross?
gross is all of it,
All of it.
net.
Gross is
with
all of it. Gross would be wall to wall from the exterior to, yeah.
Isn't that what it is right now?
No. it's
Gross,
not.
it is currently gross. It is currently gross floor area. Yes, indeed.
It is currently gross, but it's at
500, so you're saying move it to 1,000, but say gross, not that.
Keep it gross and
Not
not
net.
pull out all of these little things that make it basically even less than 500. And then there.
So everybody's good with that parking thing?
wouldn't say I'm good with it.
Yeah.
I don't like it. What I don't wanna see is, I mean, what bothers me, guys, is when I see a bunch of just empty parking spaces and, you know what I mean? That's what bugs me, and you like, you get this beautiful building and then this empty parking lot, you know, it's just, I would like to see that better utilized. We have so limited amount of space downtown. I can live with this for now, and I think it's a good solution to keep this moving forward. But I'd like to see us come up with that comprehensive parking plan and have support from council to change that, right? So we can, I wanna see developers come in and build big, beautiful buildings that we can utilize, not parking lots.
I just wanna agree with Councilmember Happy and just say, look. The whole time I was here as administrator, I can't tell you how many days I would come to work and hear gripes about this community, no business could survive. We were a dead community and it was palpable how depressed, economically depressed we were as a community. And so now we're thriving and now we have some parking. I welcome that inconvenience. I really do, given what I know this community went through, you know, and probably even before me in the 2000s, the 90s and early 2010s. So yes, it's an inconvenience, but I welcome it because I want a thriving downtown. I really, in the broader thing, I think that's what most citizens, you know. I know they don't like that parking challenge, but I think if they were to, on the balance, they say, bring me a beautiful, well-developed, high commerce, high retail downtown. I think they would love to see that. So that's where my bias is.
Yeah, and I would like to see that as well. I also would like to look at it from the emergency management, like when closures and all that, we have all kinds of parking issues, it's not just for businesses, we need a lane cleared so we can get emergency vehicles through, or we need a left-hand turn lane, so there's a lot of parking issues that we have and road issues that are totally not all in here. So we're good with doing 1,000 gross and taking out all that other verbiage. Is that what I got from everybody? Okay.
And then we also got the zoning district moving downtown to.
Yeah.
You've got
So you got them all too?
Clusters.
I've captured all of the comments from tonight.
Okay.
Then, Mayor?
Yes.
Councilmember Happy, you rescinded your motion?
I did.
Yes.
Okay, the ordinance will be back on the October 13th meeting for a second reading.
Alrighty.
Second reading, or wouldn't that be it?
It would be a first reading, right? Because we're redoing a bunch of stuff.
Second reading, we can do the changes as long as we state what those changes were from the first reading.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you. All right, adopt ordinance 468, amend article 5 of the CDC.
All right, in 2022, the city of Cascade Locks partnered with consultants from the University of Oregon's Institute of Policy Research and Engagement, IPRE, to develop a strategic plan. The 2023 strategic plan outlines 5 key categories for action: downtown revitalization, code improvements, affordable housing, communication enhancement, public service. Many of these goals focus on enhancing the visual and functional aspects of downtown, streamlining city processes to be more business friendly, and updating the development code to reflect current community priorities. In 2024, the city received a technical assistance grant from the Department of Land Conservation and Development, DLCD, to support implementation of short-term strategic planning goals. Specifically, the grant funded the development of a downtown plan and revisions to the Cascade Lock Development Code to promote a more business-friendly environment. The city again contracted with IPRE to lead this effort. The downtown revitalization plan was completed in February 2025. Major goals of the downtown revitalization plan were: 1, assessment recommendations, evaluate existing assets and barriers to economic development and provide actionable recommendations, including design code amendments, expanded public parking, recreational trail connection, signage improvements, and funding strategies for key projects. 2, code modernization, draft updated language to the Cascade Lock Development Code to simplify and improve processes for developers, businesses, residents, and staff. 3, community engagement, ensure open, transparent planning processes with meaningful public involvement. IPRE staff, city staff, and downtown revitalization project committee steering committee have developed proposed amendments to the Cascade Lock Development Code, specifically targeting Article 5 review procedures. These revisions are designed to simplify administrative processes, reduce the burden of the planning commission, remove existing barriers to development. Summary of proposed amendments. 8-6.148.010 purpose, remove outdated references to the previous downtown plan. 8-6.148.020 applicability of provisions, establish 2 levels of plan review, city administrator level plan review, planning commission level design review, expand the list of activities exempt for review. 8-6.148.030 administration, clarify procedures for site plan and design review. 8-6.148.040 submittal requirements, update plan submission format requirements to reflect current standards. 8-6.48.090 landscape streetscape plans, remove the requirements to submit plans for exterior furniture and fixtures not attached to buildings. 8-6.148.110 approval standards, eliminate references to the architectural review committee, simplify standards for multifamily residential structures, including removal of private outdoor area requirement, removal of additional buffering requirements. 8-6.148.120 exceptions to provisions, correct formatting issues, add justification for criteria for design modifications to preserve natural features or visual amenities. 8-6.148.140 maintenance, clarify the buildings and structures must be maintained in good serviceable condition. 8-6.152.060 conditional use, approved standards for specific uses, remove noise as an approval criteria per LUBA case law. Eliminate allowance for overhyped buildings, should require a variance, add requirement for drive-through queuing areas. 8-6.156.050 non-conforming situations, lower the threshold for replacement of non-conforming uses from 80 to 60% of assessed value. 8.6.160 variance, establish a 3-tiered administrative process for variance applications. 8-6.164 accessory structures, delete this section entirely. 8-6.165 as accessory residential units, simplify approval standards for ARUs. 8-6.172.050 annexation approval standards. Reduce annexation criteria for properties within the urban growth boundary to a minimum necessary to ensure adequate utility and service provision. 8-6.176.030 comprehensive plan, zoning, and development code amendment administration, allow legislative amendments to be submitted by parties other than the city following a pre-application meeting. Public hearings and revisions. The Cascade Locks Planning Commission held a public hearing on May 19th, 2025, and unanimously recommended approval of proposed amendments by City Council. City Council held a public hearing on June 23rd, 2025, and left public comment period open until July 7th, 2025. Attached for review are Ordinance 468 and Chapter 8 of the City Ordinance, or City Charter. A copy of the ordinance was provided to council and posted at City Hall 7 days prior to this meeting, satisfying the requirement to read the ordinance by title only unless a council member objects. The ordinance may be passed in a single reading if the title is read twice and the vote is unanimous. Does any council member object to reading the ordinance by title only?
Anybody object?
No.
Nope.
Right, I will now read the title and read the ordinance in title only twice. Ordinance number 468, an ordinance amending the Community Development Code Article 5 Development Review. Ordinance number 468, an ordinance amending the Community Development Code Article 5 Development Review. Once again, Amanda Ferguson from University of Oregon is here to answer any questions.
I move to adopt ordinance 468, amending Article 5, the density laws. Oh,
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? Mary Ann?
Yes, on page 24. Accessory residential units. I think a word is missing, the height of an ARU shall not the height limit of the zone.
What I said.
I think exceed needs to be put in there.
Correct. Yes, I would agree.
And then, I have a question on utility connections. I see you have water and sewer, but what about electricity? Shouldn't they have their own electrical?
Which page we did that?
At page 24.
The same from.
But electricity is not listed in here.
I know, but we did that. We did a resolution or something, we did that.
Oh,
That's covered elsewhere in your code somewhere.
is it covered elsewhere? Cause I didn't see it.
I don't know. It's not in the development code, but that doesn't mean you don't have an ordinance for it someplace else. Since you
Yeah.
run your own electric utility, you very well might have an ordinance for it elsewhere.
I believe we did do an ordinance for that to clarify it.
Okay.
I
Or a
remember that,
resolution.
I do remember that discussion, I don't remember where that was, we were talking about ARUs.
Can I just ask a question? I realize,
It was a resolution.
I realize that, but why can't it be in one place and we not have 500 different things to look at? I'm just asking. It was a resolution, is that right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Jordan's.
We can add it, certainly.
I
I
don't-
didn't,
Okay, I just,
So you're gonna add it, Amanda?
well, can I ask that if that resolution actually matches the way that this is currently said for utility connections? What this statement for utility connections says that the ADU has to have its own water or sanitary sewer connection to the public system unless the applicant can show that the existing water and sewer connections are sized appropriately to accommodate the additional impact. Is that similar to what your ordinance says regarding electrical?
No, what our, I believe it was a resolution said, is that an ARU has to have its own utility connections, period. That's water. Well.
So this would be a different
water
requirement.
and Electricity.
Yeah, I mean, so the issue with ADUs and water and sewer, their own requiring a sewer connection and a water connection for a small accessory unit that's inside of an existing house, say, or in the garage of a house. Does it actually make sense to require that they get a separate water and sewer system if one additional bathroom and a kitchen would not require that house to expand its existing water utility?
Okay, not a system, a meter. They have to be metered separately. So the sewer's gonna run into the same sewer connection that's there. They have to have their own utility account and metered separately.
Yeah.
Metered
Oh,
separately.
that's what the ordinance, okay, that's different than what I think this is written. So
Yeah.
we could
Okay.
clarify this to match that.
Did you
This
have
was more,
comments?
this was more specifically regarding water piping size, really, that requiring people to add additional piping when they don't need to.
If I recall correctly, the intention of that resolution was tenant protections.
So if they don't pay their bill. they're
If the-
not-
Yeah, the tenant doesn't lose power if the property owner doesn't pay their bill. That was the intent of it. This is, can the sewer lines connecting to the house and ARU physically handle the amount of poop going down it? That's the intention of this. They're two very different intentions.
Yes,
Okay. Did you have your hand up, Pete?
That was, I just want to comment on that, that was it.
And then I'll get Bernard and then you, okay, Bernard.
Yeah, so again, as someone who's built one of these, I think giving a future property owner the flexibility to tap into existing utility lines is a good thing. Especially if it's a smaller unit, like in a garage, you know, because a lot of those has electricity, they're next to a bathroom, wouldn't take much to retrofit them to have those utility service needs without digging an entire, I had to dig an entire line, water line to serve the ADU, you know? And again, we're trying to be business friendly, in this case, housing friendly. Let's make it easy. Sometimes you need to dig a separate water line, but in other cases, you don't have to, small, mine's 800 square feet, it's a pretty big. So it makes sense, but if you're doing 400, 500, a lot of times it would make sense. So let's make that flexible, so the property owner can do this at a low cost or lower cost.
So back to I guess that discussion before, it was really to protect the tenants if the landlord doesn't pay their utility bill. Did that resolution include water as well?
Yes, metered separately, that's
Okay.
water and power. That's
And
what
I
we
mean, I
have.
hear what you're saying, Bernard, but I think that we have to have some requirements, to just provide some protections for the tenants in case you get a deadbeat landlord that doesn't pay their utility bill and then we red tag them and they get the water shut off, you know? I think it made sense why we did that.
Courtney.
I
Sorry.
think this goes in the direct contradiction to, and I'm trying to look it up, to our previous resolution. you know, if we implement this as it's written, then now I feel like our resolution doesn't hold as much water. Thank you. But yeah, I mean, if, I would like to see everything be metered on its own meter.
So you're thinking the word shall not be there and should be must? Is that-
Well, no, because this says unless applicant can show that the existing water and sanitary sewer connections are appropriately sized.
So just remove everything after unless, right? And then it would be consistent with the resolution, because the resolution says it has to be metered.
Yes,
Yes, yeah,
at which point we can add electric in there, I think. If we, so.
I think that for clarity's sake, that makes sense. We're talking utilities, it should include all the utilities.
Especially if we're asking them to all be metered separately.
do you understand what they're wanting, Amanda?
Yep.
Okay. Anything else, Mary Ann? That's all I had. Any other questions, discussion? No. Okay, look at that, Jordan. All right. So because we have a change. Do we have to?
If that's major.
I don't, these are just minor modifications unless council disagrees. I don't think it needs to come back for a second reading, assuming it passes unanimously tonight. We can make these as just textual.
So just amend the motion to say that, and then I think the only change you're making was the
The utility connection.
utilities, so 8-6.165.020.
Page, what page?
Dot,
Page 24.
Page 24.
E. And
And
H.
the
Yeah.
Scrivener's error under E, yes, correct.
Yeah, MH.
Yep,
E and H.
so make a modification to E to add the word exceed, and H to remove the language after unless and add in electric.
Correct.
Keller second. That,
Mayor, can I ask one more question?
yes,
So when you build an ADU, you have to pay system development charges. Is it the utility connection that triggers utility charges, or would, you see what I'm asking? If you didn't have its own unique utility account, would it still be required to do SDC?
Yes,
because
STCs are
we're
irregardless of utility connection.
Okay.
So similarly, if you were just adding a restroom, another bathroom to your house, you would still pay SDCs for that second restroom, even if you didn't have to expand the water and sewer lines.
all right, so all in favor of ordinance number 468 as stated, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, it passes unanimously with the corrections on page 24, E and H.
Okay, there will be a 30-day waiting period before this goes into effect.
All right. Reports and presentations, committee reports. None.
Committee reports.
And then we have audit status.
Finance Director Clark is here today to give an update on the audit.
Okay.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So I just wanted to do a quick update on where we are with the audits. We completed fiscal year 21-22. We're now at the tail end of 22-23. The auditors did come back on Thursday with a few more questions, so we still do need to respond to those, and then I'm hoping like that's it. The next thing will be to get the reports issued. Right now, it's busy, it's audit season, and so with talking to them last week, they don't foresee the report being issued before November. So we're looking at an issuance date of somewhere by the end of November, where we'll get the report for fiscal year 22-23. Once that comes back, if we have to make adjustments or any changes that need to be made, we'll make those. And then we will start on 23-24. So we're hoping that by December, we can begin working on 23, 24. The auditors just have like quite a bit of work happening, and so it's just not gonna happen immediately. So the good thing is we already have the PBC list for fiscal year 23, 24. So we can already start working on those. So by the time we get to December, when we've gotten to the point where we can start on it, we've kind of had like a head start on it as well too. So we don't have to wait until then to start doing the work. To be able to give them, and then we'll be able to iron out timelines, when they'll be able to do the field work. I'm thinking it's probably gonna be sometime early next year, maybe, if we can get it to them. I would say if they start in December, if we give them everything by the end of winter, I'd say by spring, they should be able to schedule field work, and then that will, what they come back with will depend on how long it will take, because I don't know how many questions they're gonna have, how much stuff they're gonna ask us for, and then once that is wrapped up, we can kind of like get on a schedule again. So that is the goal right now, to be able to get us back on a normal schedule. So when we get to fiscal year 25, 26 that we're in now, we'll be back to normal. Questions? Any questions? Bernard?
Thanks, Ms. Cora. So my question is, when we get 22, 23 complete.
Mhm.
Well, let me ask you this, do we have fund balances for 22, 23 right now? Do you know that?
No, because they're doing the audit. So we
Okay,
don't-
so that,
we don't
we'll have that
We don't have it
information.
audited, no, we don't have, for 23, 20. That's what we're doing right now, we don't have it
Understand,
audited
we're
numbers.
close, but
Yes,
even though we're
yes,
that close, I
yes.
can't say,
Yes,
I can't give you this, even though I don't have this stuff done.
I
See what I'm
would,
asking?
I would like the work to be completed before feeling like the numbers are solid.
Okay. All right, and if I'm hearing you right, that could be as early as the end of November.
Yes,
You're gonna complete
yes,
it
the
all.
report, we should be able to get the report
We can
from
see
them,
where-
like, yeah,
where it
so by the end of the year, we'll be able to see what the ending balance is for 22, 23, and then the beginning balance for 23, 24.
Okay,
You have another question?
well, I just have a comment.
Yes,
I just, look, I like our little audit and monitoring action report. So I would like to see, again, see the timeline for now, 22, 23, 23, 24. And then now that we know 23, 24 is gonna go into 26, we know that 24, 25 is gonna be late, we know that now,
Yeah.
we know that for a fact. So
Yeah.
I'd like to, again, show me windows of activity in which now that audit will take place, that's my
so
request.
I think, I hear what you're asking, but I think I don't feel comfortable giving you specific timelines, because I don't know the specific timelines. There are a number of variables at play with this whole thing. I'm gonna be very pointed,
Please.
this is a very messy audit. It's years in the past where there are people who touched all of this are not around. The documentation was poorly done. Being able to find information sometimes is very taxing. And so there's schedules that were not created back then. There were just things that were not done. And what it means is that up until today, it was just me. And Kathy would chip in and help me with some stuff, Jordan will chip in and help me with some stuff, and Carrie when possible, but it was mainly me leading it. Now we have someone that started, once we get her onboarded and settled, she can hop in and help, but for me to tell you, okay, once we are done with December, then from December to February, we're gonna be able to do this, I can't do that, because if we look at the auditor's schedule, I don't have control over their schedule, I don't know what their client list looks like. So those, I feel like until we've completed one, it's hard to start making a timeline for the next one. I would not feel comfortable telling you right now, I can tell you the schedule out through the next 2 years, because it's just not, it's not sensible.
All right, you got another
Yeah,
question?
well, I guess my response to that is, I understand that a plan is just a plan.
Correct.
When you guys lay out a plan, say, okay, this is the time window in which this will be done and that will be done, et cetera, then it's subject to change. They always.
Correct.
So that's all I'm asking for. If I, and I'm seeking council support, that we ask staff to give us a plan. We understand they're subject to change, but I would like to have a plan. So we have something to kind of grapple and monitor as as these audits move forward. And we can just, again, continue to put pressure,
So
that's what I'm hoping for.
if I can be frank, I hear what you were saying, and it's, in words, it sounds nice, but I feel like you guys are gonna hold us to something that we might not be able to accomplish. And if I give you timelines, as you said, it's a plan, like budget is a plan, we're planning for it, things will happen, unforeseen events will come up. There are just gonna be things that are not within our control, that will shift the timeline, it might shift it up, it might shift it down. I'm fine giving you a plan if you can tell me that when things change, you're going to be open-minded enough to understand when the changes happen.
I'm completely confident
Okay.
of that.
I appreciate your honesty.
I don't know how to be any other way.
I appreciate this conversation,
Yes.
because I think that I guess my issue without having a plan is that we wouldn't have any idea that things have changed, I guess would be my issue. So I like the idea that now we got a plan, and then we can have a conversation when, things aren't happening on that schedule, then we're gonna do it, right?
And that's fine, but what I don't want is, I don't want, say, for me to go, okay, well, we're gonna get this done by October 30th. And then something happens and it gets pushed a week. Or the schedule, because when one thing shifts, everything gets shifted, right? Because if we don't have an audited fund balance for 1 year, it means that the numbers of the other year,
Right.
God knows what they are. So until we fix one, we can't fix the other, and then it kind of trickles down. I'm fine with that. However, I will say, for me, if there's a shift and then I provide an update and I go, okay, then we're gonna be delayed a month. I don't want to give you an update every 2 days. Cause then that takes me away from focusing on getting the work done, and it's very distracting for me. So if I say, this is the schedule that we're going by, and if something changes, this is what the change is gonna look like. I want that to be respected, and not every other day, I now need to tell you the same thing over and over and over, because that for me just takes me away from just trying to get this done.
Okay, Courtney.
And maybe possibly to, not put words in your mouth, but maybe expand on what you were mentioning, is that having a plan. When it gets pushed back, now we have a point of reference to communicate about. And let's say we set up a communication schedule, we already have our audit updates, but that's. It's a reference point. Now you can point and say, here's what held us up.
Mhm.
And then we all move on, right? As opposed to right now, where we're all just kind of in a limbo because we don't have any, it feels like, and I could be wrong, it feels like we
Yeah, I
don't have a
don't
lot of
agree with that.
information.
I don't agree with that.
Okay, yeah.
I don't think, I feel like we provided updates on a weekly basis.
At every council meeting, yeah.
Yes, as we know things. Sometimes there's nothing new that happens in a week. Sometimes we're just in a hole. So that's where I'm coming from, where we can create a schedule and we can say, yes, this is what we'd like it to look like. And if it shifts, we can move with the shift. But if it shifts, like having the same conversation every 2 days is very distracting for me personally.
And I guess I don't understand where it went from having a weekly update to.
I know,
every
because
2 days.
it just
Okay,
throw something out there.
yeah, I wouldn't wanna take.
Yeah, no, not literally every 2
My
days.
boss is like, hey, you done yet? And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, you keep coming over here and talking to me, like, yeah, I totally get that.
So I just wanna say, just to that point, every 2 weeks, that's all,
Yeah.
I'm asking for an update, once we meet twice a month. And we get an update twice a month.
Yeah.
That's.
And sometimes it's just the,
Because I-
the date that.
Exactly, that's the.
It doesn't have to be like.
I'm holding you on to this.
Yeah.
Just so you know,
It's on
I'm
record.
holding, yes, okay, good, it's on record.
Yeah.
I just wanted to.
If all is going well, next meeting's update's gonna be, we're still on track, and that's it. I mean,
And if that's
We're
good
still-
enough, and I don't have to provide a 2-page explanation of something, then I find it
A tracker.
I like the tracker. I like the
Okay.
table.
because that is more than doable.
Okay, Pete.
I really appreciate when the deadline does shift or change, having that clear communication about why, because then when we get asked those questions by the residents in the community, we can speak to that, you know,
Oh,
we can help
of course.
that, explain that. But if we don't have an idea of where we're trying to be, then we don't really know what we're falling behind, so I like it. And can you define PVC? I wasn't sure what that.
Oh, it's just the list of the requirements of what they're expecting for us to submit, so they'll have like. Prerequisites, like they'll pull some stuff, you need the trial balance, you need this, they'll ask you for, but it's usually a very long list. We provide it to them. And they do when they do their field work, they kind of go through, and if there are questions, if anything gets flagged. Then we get more and more, and that can go on for, I don't know how long, depending on how satisfied they feel. And we have to keep in mind that we're years behind, so. You know, like in the auditor's defense. If I'm putting my signature on these audits, I need to make sure that I feel comfortable with putting my signature on it, because. It's been very messy.
Yeah, could I just add, I'm gonna make a comment that whenever I first met Shantae in person and I sat with Jordan, we were talking about the audit. And I told her I'm gonna be very clear with her, I said I was the one that wanted a forensic audit. Cause that's kind of what I campaigned on, cause I wanted these audits done. And she's like, well, who said no? And I said, well, the council and the city administrator said no, and she's like. Cause she inherited a mess, it's a mess, and that's putting it nicely, our books are not good. Our books are not good, and this isn't any of her work, so this is someone else's work that she's having to find the documents or whatever. And figure out what they did or what they meant, and it's
Make it
a
make
lot.
sense, yeah, and I have to make it make sense for the auditor,
Yeah.
or they're gonna, then they keep digging more and more, and
Yeah.
then they ask for more, and it's just been.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Do you see a way out of this? I mean, he said,
Yeah.
and I'm sitting here,
Yeah.
is there an end to this?
Yeah.
We get caught up,
Yes.
we get put this
yes,
on.
I do, I do.
Can you kind of walk me through what that looks like in your mind when do you have a vision of how that would look?
Mine in a perfect world, or
Yeah, like,
realistically, which one?
I'd say realistic. I love the perfect world, but they.
Realistically, I would say we'll wrap up the current audit 22-23 by the end of the year. We'll get the report, we'll start working on 23-24. The goal is to do, Jordan and I talked about this, is to file an extension for 24-25. So that way at least we're not dinged on that. So we'll be the only one before that we will need to get caught up on is 23-24. And then once I would say by the end of the fiscal year, hopefully, if all the stars align, we'll get that done. And then we can get 24-25 done, and then we will get back on some kind of schedule, hopefully, so I'll say the next year and a half.
And
safely.
so for somebody that doesn't, this is what I do, what is the fiscal year ends June 30th?
Yes,
When is that audit, the prior year's audit is supposed to be completed by 12/31, is that right?
yes.
December.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments, go ahead, Eric.
Is it getting, like, so you talk about 22-23 being a mess, does it 23-24 get easier?
I don't know. I'm about to find out. I'm about to find out in a little while.
yeah, the issue with 22-23 is we literally had 3 different finance directors in that year. And everybody did it slightly different
Yes,
and how
yes.
filed things and
Yes,
how.
and where they say things and.
Exactly.
And also the sewer project, so because of the sewer
Yeah.
project, because we had USD funding, that triggered single audits for the federal government. So it wasn't just the regular audit, it was a regular audit, and then we had to do the single audits on top of it, so that created a little bit more work, so whenever there are federal dollars involved, it just gets a little
And
murkier,
we are standardizing processes, we're slowly working to digital formatting. So we're not digging through boxes to
Yeah.
pull a receipt, where we can go into Cascade, type in an invoice number and it's right there. We have a copy of the check, a copy of the invoice, it's all right there.
So you're saying it's internal processes that we're following now will make the audit for
Yes.
this
future,
much
but
easier.
future,
Yeah.
yeah, the future is like, I'm not here, somebody else can pick up after me and be able to get it done without. Digging through the way that I've had to, yeah.
Anybody else? All right,
Thanks for the hard work. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for coming tonight.
yes, appreciate it. All right, city administrative Bennett report.
All right, nothing, super heavy on my report. LOC's fall conference is next week, Thursday and Friday, here over in Portland. So I'll be in attendance for those. I won't be getting a hotel. It's only about like a 15-20 minute drive from my house. So I'll be in attendance for that at the end of next week. And then 2 weeks later, ONEU's annual conference is in Timberline, the 16th and 17th. Again, I will be in attendance for those, but not getting a hotel room, as it's only about a 45-minute drive from me. Safe routes to school. Hood River County and the Hood River School District have partnered to complete a safe routes to school plan that focused on walking and biking paths around the school to increase safety and options for children. A summary flyer is attached, currently available for community review. The city will incorporate the outcomes of this plan into its own transportation system plan. Both English and Spanish on the flyer are attached. So please help spread the word on this. Not sure why they put it in a 3-page flyer. It makes it very hard to put online to people digest a 3-page flyer, but that's what they provided. Financial software update. Finance Director Clark and I have been reviewing and demoing several software options to replace Cassell. At this time, it is clear that we don't have sufficient funding to comfortably cover the implementation fees and ongoing costs. As a result, we're pivoting to meet with Cassell to explore short-term performance improvements. We've already had one initial meeting. We have another meeting with them set for tomorrow to see.
Thursday.
Is it Thursday?
Yes.
I thought it was okay, one of those days. To see what part of Cassell are we not underutilizing, how are we not using it correctly? One of the issues is certain reports take forever to run. Something you would think like water consumption data would be, there in seconds. It's taken a half hour to run the report. So we're gonna meet with them, focus on report creating and see what we're doing wrong. So speed up that process. Tourism Committee Support Services. I will be attending the Tourism Committee meeting on September 29th to discuss the support services contract, which expires November 30th. The current contract includes a 1-year option extension, or the committee may choose to issue a new RFP. I plan to bring the committee's recommendation to council on the October 13th meeting. The museum board, between the time of writing this announcement, the museum board met and they are open to the 1-year extension as well. They actually have some stipulations as part of it, including that a consultant be brought in to help determine kind of the future long-term organization of the tourism committee. I think I'm pretty clear that the way it's structured now is, at least to my opinion, very inefficient. It is a recommendation, which then goes to me, which then goes to council, and it's just all of these unnecessary bureaucratic steps, which again, 1 year, I guess my end goal will be to bring the position in-house, but that's what the consultant would be for. So gonna meet with them on the 29th and then present their recommendation to council, and we'll go from there. Quarterly newsletter. Staff is finalizing the content and layout for the fall 25 newsletter, which is tentatively scheduled for release in mid-October. We'll promote the newsletter via the website and Facebook. To manage costs, we plan to not mail copies out. A limited number of hard copies will be printed for distribution around town. Exactly where that'll be is yet to be determined. Waiting on one more item to finalize that newsletter, and then we'll get it out mid-October. And then one item not on here is the electrical system tours for later this week, Wednesday and Thursday. I have Counselor Pruitt and Mayor Wood set for Wednesday. I know Counselor Happy, you said you could possibly make
I'm
it.
working both days. I was just saying, if I had the ability to
If some,
get here, I want to
Yeah.
know when of the tours were happening.
gotcha, okay. And then I think, yeah, I think you said you could make it.
Now, yeah.
Yeah, I know Counselor Pillar, you can't. Counselor Bump, I don't know if I've heard a response from
I gotta
you.
look at my calendar.
Okay, so they're 1 o'clock this
I'll let
Wednesday.
you know tomorrow.
Okay,
And Courtney, you could not, okay,
you can, okay,
so we could just do the Wednesday then if.
yeah, if you,
That
preferably
way-
Wednesday, that.
Yeah,
way,
so if you
save the
pick
Derek.
Wednesday, that way-
Wednesday or Thursday?
Wednesday or
Wednesday.
Thursday.
It was Wednesday I could make it, Thursday I can't,
Okay.
so I
Yeah.
can do Wednesday.
Yeah, cause that way we don't have him doing two
Yeah.
tours.
Yeah, I can let, Mr. Turkington know he doesn't need to schedule Thursday.
Yeah.
Perfect,
I can do Wednesday.
okay, thank you,
Thank you, Maria.
and that's all I had.
Well, what, can you talk about your weekly update as well? I do have some questions on that one.
Sure, yeah.
You say you wanna do a public safety funding, is that for the food and beverage?
Yes.
I
Okay,
remember reading that.
okay, why are you working on it now? I mean, we have 6 months before we can even get it on, what is the purpose of working on it now?
I got the impression from council this last go around, you guys felt rushed. And you weren't prepared for it to be on the ballot, so I want to get ahead of it now.
Okay.
Unless I got that wrong, but I got the impression you all felt rushed that.
Okay, I didn't know, because this was for, you talked about in your report, your weekly report, online report, you talked about a draft of a flyer,
Yes,
so. And then a work session, which I assumed was about that, that's why it didn't.
not so much the flyer itself, but there's been discussion on what that percentage actually is going to be. And what we wanna put up to a vote, and the discussions about how council is going to do any door knocking strategies. Or possibly a pack.
About 6 to 7, 8 months. Well, yeah, okay, yeah, all right. Okay, thank you. And just another question, are these Friday reports or Monday reports?
It's
'Cause-
supposed to be Friday, I didn't get it out till this morning, but they're supposed to be Friday.
Any other questions or comments on the city administrator report? All right, moving on. Mayor and city council comments.
All right, just wanted to say, people that came in and spoke this evening and or submitted written testimony, I appreciate the, hearing from the members of our community on these subjects, and I know that we have to make some difficult decisions when we're sitting up here. And I think that I appreciate it when I hear from, our community. And I personally, feel that we, the intention and goal is to just make sure that we're not wasting our time when we're here. We sit through a lot of reports and presentations. I feel like those are kind of wasted time. But having public debate about things like the topics that we discussed, I think really do bring value to our community, and people would like to hear that. So I just would encourage us to, put that extra action item on the agenda. I don't think it would take us that long to work through that, and we could have that debate then about that subject. My issue is not been about whether it's, Hispanic Heritage Month or Indigenous Peoples Month. It's really just about the gatekeeping and just putting, I just advocate, put it on the agenda. The meetings are for public reason, in public, and we can then discuss those subjects at that time. So, gosh, I really appreciate the discussion we had tonight, everybody. I always think it's interesting how I read something different than Courtney might or Mary Ann might. And you guys catch things that I don't catch. And, we had it took us a long time to work through that. But I feel like and I've commented on this to other people in the public, that sometimes our meetings, we might spend a lot of time about one word. But I'd rather us have that conversation now than after we pass this ordinance or resolution and then have someone else in the community upset at us because we didn't talk about that word, right? So I know it's somewhat painful to go through these things, but I think that's the work that we volunteered to do. So I appreciate tonight's discussion and, the parking it's a really sticky subject, but I love the way that we were solution focused and we were able to find a compromise. Not everybody was happy, but we found a compromise we all live with and keep that moving forward. So I just want to say I appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Mary Ann.
I have a couple of things. Thank you, Shante, for coming tonight. I appreciate that. And on the newsletter, and I know I've said this before, we have got to get it out to everybody, not just people that use Facebook and look at the computer. People need it physically sent to them through the utility bill. That's my opinion. Otherwise, people aren't gonna get it.
Is that it, Mary Ann?
That's it.
All right, Eric?
I I've been threatened more than once by Mr. Steelman, and today we have to draw the line, that this speech is unacceptable. It is in our council procedures that that type of speech is unacceptable. And by reading a threatening sentence towards us on the council is unacceptable. It allows this to exist and it gives the opportunity for others to do it. It is not the first time that he has threatened us on council, and it has to stop now.
Is it? All right, Tiffany.
And I just wanna say to that, I don't feel like it was a threat, I feel like it was a warning that if we don't do the things the way that we're supposed to, that there's a potential for a lawsuit, I don't see that as a threat. I had a couple of questions before I get into my thing, who takes care of the sidewalks, you know, like the grass and the weeds and stuff that's in the storm drains, who's responsible for that, you know, like if there's grass and cracks and stuff?
Depends on where.
Okay.
If you're talking blowing up pod,
Yes.
that is technically ODOT,
So they're supposed to take care of the sidewalks?
not the sidewalks, but the storm drains.
Okay.
Sidewalks are actually property owners.
I thought Public Works did storm drains.
Well, we do because ODOT doesn't get to them. But we do. They're supposed to do them. It's curb to curb, so it's their storm drains. But we take care of them because ODOT never gets them in a timely manner. But we also do the rest of them around town.
Okay, so, just a heads up, they need to be done, so I don't know who to put the fire under.
Is it Wanapa or is it?
Yeah, I mean, there's weeds and the cracks, it just needs some tidying.
It's like taking out our gutters,
Yeah,
the city.
yeah.
Doesn't they usually rent a vacuum truck about this time of year to suck those out?
No, it's in the spring.
It is spring out of the rocks.
Yeah.
Okay, I know is it an annual thing?
Yes, it's annual. And it's, again, it goes back to that handshake deal we have with the county is we plow their section of the county road in town, so they don't have to drive all the way from New York to the river. They let us, or they come and sweep our streets for free. It's a handshake deal. There's never been anything in writing. It has bitten us in the behind where we plow immediately because we have to. And then they come in like June and finally get to sweeping the streets. So it's not right.
Okay, and also today I saw on Facebook that the city of Troutdale has a who also has waste management for their collection service. They have a textile reuse and recycling collection day. I would be interested in finding out. Yeah, well, they used to do it in the old, during the war, when there was a shortage on materials, so can we find kind of?
And it's put on by
But
Waste Management
yeah, they show.
or
We're not.
Waste Connections.
Yeah, we're not waste.
Okay,
So we're Waste Connections, they're Waste
All
Management.
right.
Waste Management is a very large company.
Yeah.
Very large.
Well, waste, but that, I'd be curious to find out about that, we could ask.
Well, Jim will be coming.
Yeah, within the
November
next month, right?
November
10th.
November 10th, he'll be here.
And I wanna say I appreciate that, we were contacted by, Heather, and, in part of my statement back to her, I said, I've stated in previous council meetings that I have nothing against anyone in their beliefs. What I do have a problem with is dissecting the community into small groups of people. And with recent national events, I'm more resolved than ever in my stance to not divide the community further. When we elevate one group, others get left out. There's no possible way to cover all the ethnicities, religions, and genders that make up our town. And just about every day is a national declaration of some sort. And just to back that up, I looked it up. And according to National Day Calendar, today alone is National Brown Butter Day, National States and Capitals Day, National Online Recovery Day, National Family Day, National Girls Night, National White Chocolate Day, National Centurions Day, National Ice Cream Cone Day, Hobbit Day, National Elephant Appreciation Day, Deer Diary Day, Carfree Day, it's also first day of autumn, and American Business Women's Day. Now, for the month of September, in addition to it being Hispanic Heritage Month, it is also National Service Dog Month, National Coupon Month, National Honey Month, Sourdough September, Alopecia areata, I'm not sure if I said that right, Awareness Month, National Spinal Cord Injury Awareness Month, National Pain Awareness Month, Prostate Health Month, Gynecological Cancer Awareness Month, Whole Grains Month, National Nika Month, National Blood Cancer Awareness Month, National Sickle Cell Awareness Month, National Recovery Month, National Disease Literacy Month, National Square Dance Month, Better Breakfast Month, Fall Hat Month, National Suicide Prevention Month, that used to be a big thing, National Library Card Sign Up Month, National Americana Month, which is supposedly about bringing the nation together to reflect on elements of life in the United States that have knitted us together and made us Americans. There's Pulmonary Fibrosis Awareness Month, National Italian Cheese Month, Self-Care Awareness Month, International Update Your Resume Month, Save Your Photos Month, National Childhood Obesity Awareness Month, that used to be a big thing too. National Sewing Month, National Preparedness Month, National Professional Month, National Rice Month, National Potato Month, National Piano Month, National Mushroom Month, National Courtesy Month, National Chicken Month, Self-Improvement Month, National Little League Month, Baby Safety Month, and Classical Music Month. And on October 14th, they declared it Charlie Kirk Day, which I personally have no interest in bringing into the council chambers to be voted on. But I just think my idea is that we need to just work on the things that make our city move forward. We have lots of things, we have lots of issues, we discussed a lot of them tonight. Let's focus on that. Thank you.
Bernard.
Okay, so first I want to say a big bravo to the city administrator who got rid of that darn dilapidated RV. It's been sitting in a gorgeous brewery for God knows how many years. And do you know how many years it's been there?
Before I got here.
Yeah.
2 years.
He did that on his own time. You know, we didn't have a code enforcement officer then. And we had funding, thanks to this great council and our budget committee. So he did in short order get rid of that thing. And as someone who lives over there, it's an eyesore. I was terribly worried. It was a homeless person gonna start camping in there, and it's now gone forever. And again, thank you. That's a huge improvement, in my opinion, to our downtown. This will be my last in-person council meeting for the next 12 weeks, because I start school on Wednesday, and then I'm in Corvallis Monday through Friday until about December 10th is when the term ends. But I'll be loyally here via Zoom from this point forward. Just a reminder that October 4th is the Easy Climb Beginner mountain biking day for kids. So if you got a kid who's just mildly interested in seeing what's out there, maybe wants to ride a bike on the trails, it's an awesome event. Ted and his crew do great work, and it's so good for kids to get outside, get the fresh air, get some exercise. And we've got this great amenity here in town. So I would encourage folks who have kids to consider doing that with them. Regarding the newsletter, what Councilmember Baum said, so I asked the city administrator, how much would it cost to mail it? And if I heard that right, it was like $57. How much was it?
So actually, the printing, based just rough math, the printing costs more than the mailing, but they're both about $50. So it comes out to about $100 for the printing costs to be printed here on our machine, and then the additional postage as we do bulk mail, just adds more weight to the utility bills. So it's about $100 per run.
Okay, so I'm of a similar opinion. We have a lot of folks who are not online, don't use social media. And they're not gonna get this update, you know, if we just leave it to those venues or those platforms, so. I guess I wanted council, see if council is supportive of printing and mailing this thing with their utility.
All the council that's in supportive of putting it in the electric bill, the
That's-
newsletter.
The electric bill.
All right, you got it. Electric bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then last thing, you know, they didn't have a fire awareness month. You would not support the ice cream cone day, yeah. You know, I was just in Hawaii and I you know, I like to windsurf, it's a great place to sail in Maui, so I was curious, I went to Lahaina, that was the town that was devastated by the forest fire, I think 2 years ago. And I had been over there, and it literally is wiped off the map. It's in every commercial building, gas stations, you know, art galleries, everything is gone. And there's some houses starting to be rebuilt. That banyan tree did survive, you know, that tree in the park, Garden is this beautiful, amazing tree that's spread over a huge piece of property. And it's looking very healthy, it's leafing, it's doing really, really well. But yeah, the town was completely just wrecked and, you know, a lot of businesses, they're no longer making money, there's no commerce there. So I just, I hope, you know, when we do our next retreat, we spend some time talking about, wildfire prevention as, consideration for a council goal. It's scary when you think what could happen to our town, given what happened we're seeing this in other places. Colorado had a similar fire that wrecked them. And I can't help but just, you know, sits deep for me. I just wanna know it could happen and I hope we'll make the plans to de-risk or minimize risk that happens to our community.
Mayor, can I add a point to that? Chief Logan and I are looking actually at a grant opportunity to create and increase the fire buff along Dry Creek and BPA's lines. Hopefully soon. I mean, the grant application is open for pre-application now, so.
That's lovely news.
Yeah. So we as a staff are actively working on it already.
That's great to hear. Okay, I continue to enjoy this work with you guys and thank you.
Thank you, Bernard. Courtney.
I want to say thank you to Amanda. I know she's not here. It's always nice dealing with her. She's professional and knowledgeable. Thank you, Shantae, for being here. It's nice to have some interaction with you and get to know you a little bit better, even in this capacity. Thanks for making the drive. I really appreciate it. I agree with you, Pete, that our conversation today, I mean, we didn't all walk away happy, but we all were able to come meet in the middle, and I love that for us. You know, we all just want to see Cascade Locks prosper. We all kind of have a different idea of how that's gonna happen, but that's why we all get to come together and make decisions, you know, for the community. I'm always grateful to hear feedback from our community members. Written in or in person, always a good thing. We put up the peace pole this Sunday down at Toll Booth Park. There is a new peace pole, go check it out. Put it up on the International Day of Peace. The third graders got to have their say in what languages we put on the peace pole, and the Rotary Club. It was nice. It was a good time. It's great to see it. Can we back charge ODOT for cleaning out the storm drains?
Probably not.
It was-
They don't have any money.
Yeah, they really don't.
You jeopardize the $1 million, right? Let's not push those buttons right now.
Okay, so I'm excited to go, I'm going to the leadership workshop, a week from Friday with the LOC conference, I'm really excited about that. I noticed when I was on the website that, we've gotten a tab that says agenda and minutes, but it no longer holds agendas, or minutes, because all our minutes are on YouTube, and I also noticed that you were able to add a link to today's agenda right under the agenda packet, and then it had a YouTube link.
I just did that today.
Yeah, that's super exciting. Can we also add it to the tab that? We did that someone. Pardon?
We did.
That happened today?
You can't add it to. Like right now it says packet, or it says agenda and packet. You can't add anything else to that. So that's why the link is beside it.
No, and that's all fine, and that's under. But I'm talking about like, for any of our minutes, anything that's under that meeting, agendas and minutes tab, that's, planning commission meetings, all of those, and they don't, it says that you have minutes in there under that tab, but there is none for any of the past meetings ever since we went to, digital format, so either we can remove that heading saying that there's
Because
minutes
they're
under
in
this
the
tab.
packet. Minutes are.
There's the action minutes approved by council.
Is that, maybe I don't understand what you're saying, but
Does minutes just refer to action minutes, or does it refer to the actual minutes?
I'm on the website now, yeah, I noticed at the very top, it says 2025 city council minutes and agendas, and then right underneath that it says YouTube city council. Was that new?
That's
stuff we-
today.
Yeah, and I think when you pull that up, it brings up the channel that has all of the prior,
Right, but now go to the planning commission,
okay, I didn't do that.
or any
So
of
the
the other.
rest of the committees need updated then.
Yes, please.
Got it.
yeah, there hasn't been any. Meetings, so.
Yeah.
But they're on the YouTube,
Yes, they are on YouTube.
and so to have that heading of having minutes there, I would like to see a minutes link. But I thought, if council wants to see that moving forward, I mean, obviously moving forward, super, when I was on there today, having that link right there is really cool.
It's up in the right hand corner too, just. For. You know, YouTube is up in the right hand corner.
Thank you, Kathy.
Is it? Yeah. And then,
And that's always been there.
Yeah.
never noticed that. Yeah. And then I would like to revisit the definition of consensus at some point with council. I feel right now, as it is, you have one person that is able to make the final decision on a consensus. And that's not the way the city should be set up.
Okay, I'm just gonna say it
Yeah.
again, and you guys can Google it.
Yeah.
Consensus is everyone agrees. Now you guys can say. You know, what does the majority want to say about this or whatever? Just don't use the word consensus, because consensus is everybody.
Consensus is
Consensus
everybody,
has a
we've
few different
defined that.
definitions.
Well, I Googled it right before this meeting, and what I read did not say that everybody agrees.
Right.
It means that no one disagrees, is what I read, versus, you know,
If no one disagrees,
which is kind of what we ended up with, was that so long as no one was adamantly opposed to
Right,
something.
but now you have, all it takes is one person to be adamantly opposed, and I feel like that kind of goes against the intent of having a city council where you have all the heads, all the brains that come together to make decisions.
Are you done with your? Is that it? Okay, but did you have a question?
Well, I don't know if we wanna make this a separate council item, but I also would like to revisit the definition in this conversation, for similar reasons.
And I think it probably makes sense now that we have a council, right? I mean, we had this discussion last, with a different council, at least one other person on council, so I'd be open to that too.
All right, so on to me, we have one opening on budget and planning left. And then on October 18th, we have dumpster days, so people can bring down 3 yards of material, that's not yard debris, that's stuff that you can dump in the dumpsters on October 18th. Also, I had down about the, take your kids mountain biking on October 4th. Also, the casino night, that is for raising money for the PTO and the museum is also on October 4th. So that's a good event to attend as well. Sorry, guys, I just have a lot. I did the small city meetup in Hood River, and that was a really good meeting. Learned about how they're working on, the LLC is working on property taxes and changing that structure in Oregon. So it was an interesting conversation. Attended the museum board meeting, where I found out also about us sending a letter to the museum about, recommending that they extend the contract by a year. And I was asked how council felt about that, and I asked that they table it because council didn't know anything about it yet. So, there is a tourism meeting on the 29th, I guess. City Administrator Bennett plans on attending. So at the next meeting, I want us to talk about tourism. So I'll put it on the agenda so we can go through the RFP that we previously put out. And where the museum applied for that RFP for the tourism support. And then the contract that we did with Friends of the Museum. So we got a RFP response from the museum. And then we did a contract with Friends of the Historical Museum, which is two different entities. So there's some differences there, and then talk about the RFP and what we want to do with tourism and what that looks like to everybody. So we'll do that next meeting. Also, I met or talked with Charles Young, which is the Oregon Emergency Management for Hood River. And he's working on making sure he has all the materials and brochures and all that. We're gonna try to coordinate where we get the pavilion or city hall here or something where we get all the community involved, all the citizens to be prepared for an emergency. Having a 2-week plan, finding out who needs help getting this stuff together, because not all people can do it. And and hopefully we can come up with a group of 10 people that can be willing to go through like 16 hours of training to act as our Red Cross until Red Cross can get here. Because we have a shelter for heating and cooling, but we cannot open that unless we're trained. And we need to have at least 10 people trained, so if 5 of them are out of town, we still have 5 of them that can still do it. So working on getting some of that stuff done. Also, ODOT, some of you guys know, some of you guys don't, has 84 at Troutdale has went from a class A highway, which means they do anything and everything to keep it open. And we now went to a class C, which means there's no overtime at all. They only work on it during the day. And that's kind of what we're gonna deal with this winter. We're gonna have 84 getting shut down. I can see it already because we get shut down when they're working on it all the time. So if they don't work on it, I can bet we're gonna, and I've voiced my concern with Charles Young in regards to that and asked to be looped in the conversations that he's already having about Cascade blocks and how we're kind of on this island and where emergency equipment and stuff can't get to us, or we don't have a store with a good supply, we don't have doctors here and all of that. So it's a big concern. So I've asked to be looped in them conversations. So if anybody else would like to be part of them, I would invite you to do it. Also, we did the yard debris the second Saturday of the month, and we had 19 truckloads of yard debris that was brought, and 5 of them were brought by 8:10. So by 8:10, we opened at 8, and by 8:10, we had 5 truckloads there. So it's definitely a better response on Saturdays than what it is on Thursdays. And there was that grant that you were talking about, you guys applied for the HMGP one or? One of the ones?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, well, we're exploring options.
Okay, yeah, because there is some grants that are available to us to get us prepared for emergencies. Whether it's setting up a shelter, getting food rations or whatever, there is grants available, so hopefully we can do that. And then there's also a grant available for our internet and all that for our computers. So for security network. I also did want to bring up to you guys, because I noticed, because I had to ask for a copy of the electrical agreement for moving the utilities from the McCord Creek Bridge. And I reported to you guys last time that after talking to the city administrator that we got the $1 million. And that we'd possibly, with interest, owe about 40,000 or so on this $1.6 million loan. Well, once I got this, because I wanted to see what kind of language was in here to protect us from the second relocation. But in doing that, I found out that we actually signed a contract for a loan for $1,173,000 and $400. So $1,173,400, which means, just doing math off the top of my head, we are gonna wind up owing at least $200,000 instead of having that taken care of. And I was very disappointed to know that. And I don't know how we've been talking about $1 million loan and it's not been $1 million loan all this time, but I wanted to bring it to your guys' attention too. It just came to my attention this week. So if we would have known that, then we could have got the lobbyists to work for 1.2 million. But, so, just so you guys have that information, also wanna, thank Joanne for coming, I appreciate it. Thanks to Cody and for Heather for writing in. I always appreciate it when citizens come to council and participate and sit through it, cause it's a grueling process. But thank you guys, and on that, I think I am done. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right,
Can I say one thing?
Seconded, please.
Keller,
Thank you.
go ahead.
Tiffany, years ago, Ken did a garage sale. We had so much textiles left over. That's what they make, we took up the floor, that's what they make on them. They use a lot of textiles at that time, I don't know.
So that was-
So take your own.
That's just what they're.
I like that idea.
Was Bob's firm size.
It was like Ryan.
But we should have done like, it's still better than $1 million,
Take my name tag off here, I'm gonna leave it on my, black.
Cause I was just looking.
Yeah.
Rub it in.
Remember.
Rub it in. So we might made it swear.
I
For investing.
That is railroad plan, say, you know, that.
We may have.
You know, where
Okay,
they're
right.
right.
I'm going to. Because there's.
Well,
Yeah, so that's.
I know. We don't have to go try for the second, third year.
This is. I just kind of.
Well, I read
Whenever I see them outside, I was like,
like, how are we?
I'm like very. Information and I'm like.
I don't know.
There's.
We don't actually color.
Their
it.
property.
The railroad.
I know.
No, I can't do that.
To do it wide enough, you could have.
We actually
About
did.
behind the ice cream.
Yeah.
Behind the.
Somebody else.
Behind the restaurant, behind.
It makes it.
Yes.
Yeah.
All.
Makes it.
These are frustrating this year.
It's frustrating.
Yes. It's very frustrating. You gotta make sure.
I mean, people for us like hard to communicate.
Love that.
Which is.
Well.
It's good to hear. Because I think a lot of people understand how long we get it done. You know,
The slow process to the very start.
it gives you some appreciation. Well, it's frustrating. It's like, wow, you know, just understand why things are. Wait.
Yeah, it's critical. But the people things. Well, the third graders were there.
And there was one out there
Showed up, and he got over and
Oh, that's
and all that, so that was cool, and then they had a high school student that lives here that read the proclamation, whatever it was. Yeah, it was really cool, it was really cool in there.
That's some fun.
So that was the one, just
Yeah.
understand what you were saying.
Yeah, your West Fish High School.
What we,
About
And so they started doing
the,
that, where they.
about keeping it off the agenda. You're referring to,
I gotta go, but we'll see you tomorrow night.
yeah, I'll see you
Okay,
tomorrow night.
yeah,
I got
sounds
a
good.
happy hour, I'll let you know.
Just holler at me, yeah,
You know,
sounds good, thanks, great.
See you, Bernard. Okay.
Well, and
No, these are checks, these are things that they have to be rewritten.
No, I didn't, I should prepare my comments, I don't know, and so sometimes what I'm trying to say isn't not all that clearly. And I guess what I was saying was that, and it's kind of along the lines of what I was reporting was saying, was
school because.
the way that we have consensus defined right now, if one person doesn't want to be on the agenda. And I guess I was thinking more about this after I made my comment that, like,
You know,
if something.
freshmen to seniors, you were all
And
like.
you say you want to put on the agenda, right? It's not important, yeah, I'm still probably gonna support it because I feel like it's like, and I'm not gonna pass a value judgment on whatever someone's trying to bring forward, but like,
Love that.
I'm not gonna.
Oh my God.
I graduated,
And
I
of
think
course,
this,
so.
class in this state at the time.
And I think that becomes on us, that we also realize there's 7 of us, and if we push all of us on bringing stuff to the mayor to put on the agenda.
and making her make the choice to have what's gonna go on the agenda and what's not. Those sorts of things come before the council, council gives.
Yeah.
I mean, or, I feel like
I
we should go to 3 or 5 or 2, like
If you
personally.
were.
But the consensus, she says, oh, we could change the word and not use all or nothing.
When you say
And if you
consensus,
were
that's
But the problem is that we do something, or always to be sure it wasn't, there's been like several constellations that have been brought out, we should go, so we can. And we're always doing that, and it's that it takes time, it takes time, I mean. At the point, you just,
I would
say, there was not gonna do this, let's not.
And shine dash.
And I also.
Your business,
I felt like-
Yeah. Super curious.
Are we off, Kathy?
Still, yeah.
Computer's off.
No, it is not.
Might be why Jeremiah is calling me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeremiah.
Other than that. Hey, I can hear all you guys talking.
On the right.